names anyway, or just not call?
You can, that's fine. If you don't, somebody will wonder why, so we'll be okay. Thank you. Okay, good evening, everyone. I think we'll bring this board workshop virtual meeting to order, being that I believe it's 7:03. And I'd like to have the Pledge of Allegiance first. I pledge
allegiance
to the
to the flag
of the
of the United States of America
and to the
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And now, Mrs. Castle, could we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Cunningham,
Here.
Dr. Drake,
Here.
Mr. Elliott, Mr. Hipser,
Here.
Mrs. Hofkin,
Here.
Mrs. McGinnis,
Here.
Mr. McCarrick. I know he's here.
Sorry, here.
Ms. Pennypacker, Mrs. Cunningham.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'd be looking for a motion to approve the minutes from February 25th meeting, board workshop meeting.
Motion. Moved. Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Next, we'll move on to presentations. First, we'll start with class rank policy and implementation presented by the high school administration. I'll turn it over, I'm assuming, to Dr. Carpenter.
We're actually going to start. Just so there is some context for why this discussion is occurring this evening. Back in the fall, the policy committee was reviewing all the 200 pupil policies. At that time, we were discussing reporting on student progress, which is a policy, and the outgrowth of that conversation was GPA. The outgrowth of that conversation at the time was also class rank and our class rank policy. In that discussion at that time, there was some pretty lengthy dialogue about wanting to make sure that when we address this policy, we are addressing it holistically. We wanted all board members to be present and understand the options they had for the revision of that policy. And we also wanted the community to have an opportunity to weigh in. It took us several months to get to this presentation because, as many of you know, we've been talking about our instructional format. And that sort of took center stage. So this seemed like a really good time to bring myself as the policy administrator, our high school administrator together, and Kim Bast and Sarah Rothermel. All of us have been engaged in this discussion and would like, our findings, and then ultimately the timeline. There is no decision to be made presently about the policy in and of itself. This is really for context for when we come back to the policy committee and move forward a recommendation for a first and second read to be adopted by the school board. So the bulk of this will be done by Dr. Carpenter, Mr. Amsler, and Mr. Miller. So I actually am going to turn it over to Dr. Carpenter now.
Thank you, Dr. Farina. So appreciate that little intro and perspective for everybody. So I'm going to give you a start here, just the presentation, overview of our presentation, a little bit of perspective. We'll talk about historical perspective of class rank. We'll talk about current practices that are in place in school districts across the country and also in Upper Perk. We're going to give you some data, college rank, data on rank and college admissions here at Upper Perk, as well as across the country. And we'll also give you our recommendation moving forward. So I think, Mrs. Bass, we can go to the next slide. Well, you can move to that next one right there. So we're going to start with a historical perspective. So our first bullet here, class rank was computed in basically all high schools across the nation. It was considered a major factor in college admissions. And you can see on our second bullet there, we have a definition of class rank from College Board. In essence, it's basically class rank is ranking students in the same class, graduating class, according to their grades and their GPA. At Upper Perk, what we do is we use a weighted system for ranking our students, where we give students who are in AP courses and honors courses an extra boost of weight, and that increases class rank. So in a 4.0 scale, we have students who graduate with a 4.5, 4.6, and that's because of the extra weight that they earn from getting A's and B's in honors and AP classes. So that's what's happening at Upper Perk. And that last note there is important to keep in perspective, that class rank would be a valid stat. And we would be able to compare apples to apples if every student took the same classes with the same teachers, but that doesn't happen. So it's very difficult to compare apples to apples. So, additional historical context here. I did mention that class rank was a considerable factor with college admissions, but it has steadily declined. In a study by the National Association for College Admissions Counseling, we have seen, the studies have shown that class rank has, its value has decreased for college admissions officers. So to kind of give you a perspective, here in the most recent study, only 9% of the colleges who participated in the study said that class rank was a considerable factor in admissions. And to kind of give you additional perspective, 74% or almost 75% of the colleges who participated in that study felt that grades in all classes was a considerable factor, and 73% felt that grades in college prep classes were a considerable factor in college admissions. So the decline for class rank has been ongoing for the last 10 years or so. And I believe, this is just my humble opinion, I believe that colleges are recognizing the differences in school populations and how schools calculate rank. And it's very difficult to compare students across counties, across the state, across the country, because of the different ways that schools are calculating rank. You can see that students with a 90% average at Upper Perk may not rank in the top 50 in a graduating class, and students who average 90%, that's pretty good. And when they're not in the top 50 in a class rank, it doesn't appear that that's a good average. And I talked a little bit about the validity of using class rank. We will also on a slide to show you about the difference that where students are ranked can be minimal. The difference between a student who's ranked 15 and 40, there's just minor differences there, and so we'll show you that in a slide coming up. So where we are presently, as I mentioned, that we do rank students based on GPA, and here is our current policy, and I think Dr. Farina is going to review this.
I'll jump in. When we brought the policy, our process is the discussion of our current policy, which is we have used, and the recommendation at the bottom is to computate grade point averages and assign rank to the class, just as Dr. Carpenter has described. Historically, students have to be enrolled full-time in an accredited institution for 2 consecutive academic years in order to establish a grade point average, which will be included in class rank. So we, at this point, issue class rank at the conclusion of their 9th grade year, and every subsequent year they are at Upper Perkiomen in high school. Any 2 students with an identical rank, they would be tied. And we have traditionally in Upper Perk had a valedictorian and salutatorian based on the top 2 ranks within the school district. And so we are currently operating under this policy. We will operate under this policy for the rest of the year. The point of our discussion tonight was to look at 2 potential recommendations that the policy committee could consider. One would be the elimination of class rank and this policy altogether, and or a revised class rank policy, which we'll explain a little bit later in this presentation, based on some of the information that the high school administrators will share with you right now. So I will turn it back over.
Good evening, everyone. So to elaborate on what Dr. Carpenter shared with our historical facts, we wanted to give you some definitions and some exact values that came from our class of 2020. Our first example just shows that when we're comparing our GPA, we sometimes have students ranked with just thousandths of a point difference. Some of them were ranked 4.544 to 4.50, and that was separating our students in terms of their weighting. Taking the class of 2020, 32 graduates had a 4.0 or higher, giving us a rank of 1 through 32. And when we looked at the top 5% of our class that just graduated between number 1 and number 12, they were separated by 0.227 in terms of GPA, which means the highest student last year had a 4.63, and we had a 4.41 as the 12th place finisher, if you consider class rank in that capacity. While we do a numerical system, other institutions and places go by percentage up 10%, 25, 50%. And for our class rank, it's always calculated at the end of the 4th quarter because we use the full completion of classes from that year. So when we take the data from the 2020 school year and we look at all of our classes, 12th, 11th, 10th, and 9th, and we use a 3.8 GPA, which means you had a 95% average or higher in all of your classes. In 12th grade last year, this graduating class, we had 55 out of the 245 students averaging a 95% or higher. 11th grade, we had 59 of 248, meaning we had almost 1 out of every 4 students with a 95% or higher. 10th grade, we had 44, and in 9th grade, we had 50. When looking at those numbers, 9th grade would be the lowest because it's the least amount of AP courses available to students. But as you can see, we had students that were ranking 55, 59, 44, or 50 in their class, and they still had a 3.8 GPA or higher in a high school setting, which means they averaged an A or higher, an A of 95% or higher in all of their classes for the school year. One thing in looking at our population, and part of the discussion came about, is how class rank affects our Western Montgomery Center students. We have a very high population that goes there. And based on the limited availability they have in time in our building, being half-day students, there's no waiting at Western Center. And we understand that those Western Center students are still achieving high accolades and working towards a very prestigious career path. For the class of 2020 last year, 138 certifications were earned, which is extremely high based on the population we send. And for this year alone, in the 2021 school year, we've already had 271 certifications given out to all of our students, even eclipsing what we did last year. We've also have students placing in Skills USA, and we even have some placing from district into the state competition. And these items are high accolades and go towards these students in their career path. But these are things that just can't be calculated into GPA. And these students, because they're only in academic classes, rank in the middle and have 3.8s, 3.9s, even 4.0s, but they're considered in the 50 or 40 number in terms of class rank. So if we look more presently at where we are and how we compare, using county rank based on Future Ready Index, you can see the top 8 school districts ranked in our county, from Lower Merion to North Penn, have all eliminated class rank. They've gone through this process and looked and seen that while class rank was a traditional method, as Dr. Carpenter elaborated on, they realized that it is not a fair comparison of apples to apples. And the top 8 schools listed there, Lower Merion, Dublin, Wissahickon, all the way down to North Penn, including Perkiomen Valley, which is right down the street from us, have all eliminated it as a Montgomery County. And if we go to the next slide, we show the remaining top 15 schools, which involve Jenkintown, Souderton, Upper Moreland, Springfield. All but one have eliminated it. Springfield still keeps it, and they have been in discussions of where they go with it, but they're still keeping it. But out of the top 15 schools ranked with the Future Ready Index, only one of them are keeping it in there as an actual item that they report out regularly on transcripts and report cards. The next slide, Dr. Farina. And if we expand our reach a little bit farther and go into Bucks County and Lehigh County, schools like Central Bucks, Downingtown, Emmaus and Lehigh, Parkland, Southern Lehigh have all eliminated this. And these schools are extremely high averaging in the school index performance. We can't compare them county to county because they're outside of our region, but they do have similar populations with certain categories, and they all have outstanding graduation rates, college placement rates, SAT scores, and we use them as a comparison for where we are. And they have all eliminated class rank because of information they received as it being a negative factor in students in terms of college admissions or factors beyond the high school setting. You can go to the next slide. If we break the data down a little bit farther and looking at the NCAC, the National Collegiate Admissions Council report that Dr. Carpenter referenced early, that report surveys over 2,000 universities every year. They continue to use the same universities in participation. And as you can see, from 1993, which was the very initial year that they began calculating very specific items for admissions, class rank started at 42%. And since then, it has plummeted to 9.1 in 2019, which was a steady decline in trend. There is, if you look at the reports in full and capacity, there's never an uptick. It is a steady decline. Colleges really do start to realize that the breadth of a student's educational background and course selection are actually more important to them, as well as the strength of the curriculum. And they do look at admission test scores, SATs, ACTs, as a balancing factor in a unison comparison when we talk about students and how they can be compared apples to apples. And I will turn it back over to Dr. Farina at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. So in our policy discussion, I shared that there were 2 potential changes that could be made to this policy 214. One, as I alluded to, was elimination. The other would be the revision of this policy to align with other high-performing school districts across Montgomery, Bucks, Delaware, and Chester counties. As you'll see, the calculation of class rank would still be based on a quality point scale. However, it would not be published. And so as you navigate down this slide, it would take us through. We currently have sophomores, juniors, and seniors who have class rank listed on their transcripts presently. Anytime we make a policy change, we want to respect those students who have been living under the policy as it was written when they entered and received a ranking. So our recommendation or consideration for revision to this policy would be for the class of 2024 and beyond. And then what that recommendation could potentially be is that all references for class rank shall not appear on school district documents. We would report class rank only if requested by colleges, universities, or any institution that requires it upon consent of a parent, which would include documentation. So for example, the school district as an entity, upon consent and with the request, could provide that to any institution for the purposes of admission, scholarship, financial aid, or other reason deemed appropriate by the district. However, it would not be distributed to students. It would not be printed on students' transcripts, and it would not be shared with students or their family. So this is a consideration for the school board when we go back to policy to modify our current class rank policy to reflect this language. But as you can see, it would currently impact our sitting freshmen. Our sophomores, juniors, and seniors would operate under the previous 214 policy. So now I'll turn it back over to talk about why this recommendation. We've shared some historical data. Now we're going to talk a little bit about why we believe the context for this discussion matters moving forward.
Good evening, everyone. The next couple of slides have several different quotes on them from various publications and research. I'll leave the exact quotes for you to read, and I'll kind of summarize the quotes from the slides. So class rank really encourages very cutthroat competition, especially for those students who are competing for the top spots. And because of class rank, students will often choose courses based on what will have the greatest positive impact on their GPA, instead of selecting courses that they have a genuine interest in. These students then miss opportunities to experience and participate in a wide variety of course offerings that they may really enjoy in order to stay competitive with their GPA for class ranking purposes. Eliminating class rank sends a message that we care about students as individuals, and we are not simply comparing them to their classmates. Next slide there. Class rank carries with it an underlying assumption that academic success is a scarce commodity only available to a select few students at the top. And we know that not all students are academic minded, and they may excel in other areas in school. We have many students who attend our Western Center who excel in their technical programming, and they compete and achieve at high levels in skills competitions and score advanced on NOCTI exams. We want to help students actualize their potential and achieve personal success. And with the exception of the students at the top, class rank can be detrimental to students' self-worth, confidence as a learner, and their motivation for learning. Next slide, please. So why consider the elimination of class rank? So validity of class rank as a statistic is questionable. It's very difficult to effectively utilize this statistic to compare students from different schools with different educational backgrounds, with differing levels of academic rigor in their high school course selection. Having class rank can automatically eliminate many students from even applying for certain scholarships, and eliminating class rank can open up more scholarship opportunities for more students. Without class rank, students may feel more confident in applying for more scholarships based on their academic merit and not feel like that they don't have a chance to actually receive a scholarship because of their class rank number. Without class rank as a statistic, more emphasis or weight is often placed on other components of the scholarship applications. Class rank can cause a great deal of stress for students regardless of where they are in the rank order. And because of class rank competition, students may have selected extremely stressful course loads. Eliminating class rank can help students during the college admissions process by placing more emphasis on other components of the student's application. Without class rank, institutions of higher learning are then forced to analyze more in depth the entirety of the student's high school body of work, looking at overall grades, rigor of courses completed, extracurriculars, clubs, admissions essays, admissions exams, personal recommendations, etc. Today, class rank is not nearly as important in the college admissions process as it once was. More emphasis is now placed on overall course curriculum, in the rigor and merit of courses completed that make up the student's academic body of work.
So moving forward, so Mrs. Bass, if you can go to the next slide. as Dr. Farina already mentioned, with the possibility of the revised policy, we are, based upon these factors here on this slide, recommending to eliminate class rank or phase it out, if you will, for our existing freshman class. When you think about the goal of schools and our high school, is to develop talent and to prepare students for the next level. Ranking students has nothing to do with developing talent and preparing students for the next level. So as indicated previously in the presentation, the importance of class rank has diminished over the years. And you can see these are the factors that, Mr. Ansler just mentioned these. These factors have increased in value for colleges. Colleges recognize the difference in student populations at different schools and the variations in which schools compute rank. And as Mr. Answer said earlier about the impact of students, our counselors see this every year in their office when they're talking to students about jockeying for rank positions and only planning on classes with extra weight versus scheduling classes based upon their passions and their interests. So with the elimination of class rank, we see that competition, the jockeying amongst students and looking to advance, increase their rank. We see that eliminated, and we're hopeful that students will take classes that are of interest to them. I just had a conversation 2 days ago on Wednesday with a counselor, and we met with parents, and we talked about the issue of scheduling all honors and AP classes and what that can do for a student and the stress that can create. And we started talking about what are her passions? Where does she see herself in 4 or 5 years? What does she want to study? And if you want to study science, then focus on AP and honors classes in the sciences and the maths, and you don't have to take the AP and honors classes in the English. So we need to have more conversations about passions and where kids want to go and pathways that they want to travel down in order to be successful.
So as an alternative to class rank, we would be looking at possibly transitioning to the Laude system as an alternative. So instead of class rank, the Laude system is a tiered system that recognizes students for the rigor of their academic program, as well as their success in that program. The Laude system is used by most colleges and universities to recognize students for their achievements in the academic realm. Summa cum laude is the highest honor, magna cum laude is great honor, and cum laude is honors. The benefits of the Laude system, it emphasizes competition against other school students and not just against UPSD students. It reduces the mathematical GPA game among many students and removes the risk of taking only the most rigorous courses for fear of class rank impact. And we believe that this will also help reduce the stress levels of students and help make their high school experience more positive and enjoyable. The Laude system helps to motivate students to challenge themselves academically, as well as choose courses that are of interest to them and support their plans for the future. Our current honor system, we currently have distinguished honors is earned by students who achieve a 95% average or higher. And at graduation, these students are recognized by wearing the blue and gold cords. And currently honors is earned by students who achieve between a 90 and a 94.999 average. And at graduation, these students are recognized by wearing a gold cord. If we were to look at the class of 2020, so last year's graduating class, we would have had 32 students recognized as summa cum laude, 17 students recognized as magna cum laude, and 40 students recognized as cum laude. So overall, if we were using the Laude system, we would have recognized a total of 89 students. We are continually analyzing employment trends, looking at new programs to implement, and assessing the feasibility of implementing new courses, as well as additional electives in the core in order to better prepare our students to be college and career ready after graduation. the current proposed breakpoints that we would be looking at for the Laude system would be summa cum laude would be a 99 average or above. For magna cum laude, it would be 95 to a 98.999. And for cum laude, it would be a 90 to a 94.999 average.
As we talked about, traditionally in our high school graduation process, the valedictorian and the salutatorian were the traditional 1 and 2 class rank given at the end of the year, and were traditionally the class speakers at graduation. Looking at our system and what valedictorian and salutatorian come from, valedictorian traditionally just means to say farewell to, and salutatorian means to open with. While these are traditional ranks and they're given based on the number 1 and number 2, we have had numerous students in the past years who have opted not to speak, even though they are 1 and 2. They are achieving their rank and being proud of it, but they choose not to speak at our graduation practice. Moving forward for our selection process, we would use this Laude system to help pick our graduation speakers. Using summa cum laude with a 99 point or higher and magna cum laude as a 95 to 98.99, students will be eligible to apply for the valedictorian and salutatorian who wish to speak and give the closing and opening remarks at graduation. And based on the committee, we'll be able to work through the process of picking students who represent high academic achievement and wish to represent their class with the closing remarks, and students with high academic remarks and wish to give out the opening remarks for the graduation process.
So for the information for the school board, and specifically those who may want to attend the policy meeting on April 19th, our goal is to bring back the feedback from the board here this evening, to open the floor and allow our community to hear the potential in those recommendations, and allow them to send feedback to the policy committee for the April 19th policy committee meeting. So the goal is this presentation would set the foundation so people can consider their thoughts and share their thoughts with both the policy committee, the board at large, and then to make a recommendation to move forward, the policy committee would, about what one of those 3 options we would like to pursue. Is it to keep our current policy as is? Is it to eliminate class rank altogether? Or is it to revise our current policy to not publish class rank, however, use it and provide it to college entities for scholarships, financial aid, and things of that nature, just not have it on the surface and published to students and their families. That recommendation from the policy committee would go to the board for a first read, a second read in May, and then board approval May 13th. So we wanted to get this out here. We have time to hear feedback from the board between now and our April 19th policy committee. But this truly was the recommendation of that committee to give all the information to everyone up front, so it wasn't a surprise at the policy committee and or our April 22nd board first read. So we're happy to entertain any questions the board may have at this moment. And also this will be the bulk of our policy committee on April 19th.
Okay, so does anyone have, I can only see part of everyone here.
Yeah, Kim, can you
Thank you.
take down things?
There we go. That's better. Let's see. Do we have any questions, comments? Oh, Keith,
I'll start.
go ahead.
I'm part of the policy committee and I support what we've presented as far as replacing the old system. I think it is a bit more fair than the old system was.
Okay, thanks, Keith. Anyone else?
And we've had this conversation plenty of times in the past. And I definitely agree with replacing the system going forward. I know there's going to be some people who are upset by it, but at the same time, I think people need to look a little bit further and realize that this system is actually more hurtful to students than helpful, and that your high school performance does not always guarantee your performance going forward in life. You may have a worst performance in high school and a phenomenal experience in a trade school, or vice versa. And I think that this is only a hindrance, and that I think the newer system that we want to propose, I think, does give the most equity across the board.
Thank you. I see Ryan unmuted, and then I see Dana raising his hand, and I see Carrie unmuted. So we'll go Ray, Dana, Carrie, if that's okay.
Okay, when we first brought this up, I was part of the policy committee, and so I kind of remember discussing all this. And at the time, I wanted to bring it to the full board because it's we also need to get the I guess suggestions or concerns from the community as well, because it might seem like a minor change to us and in the best interest of the students, but if we don't get the word out there and get everybody included in the conversation, it's going to be very confusing, and there's going to be a lot of upset parents. So I think this was the first conversation we're having about it, and then there's going to be a policy meeting. Then there's going to be a first read and a second read. There's going to be plenty of room for everybody to tell us what they think. And I think in the presentation you just gave, it's not going to start until 2024 class, correct? Okay. We wanted to give plenty of time. We didn't want to hit anybody and pull the rug out from students that are in the 11th and 12th grade now and had their heart set on it and planning for it for their whole life. So this is going to start with the 9th graders, I think, is the 2024 class. So plenty of time to make the transition and get everybody on board and have something in place to pick the top 2 to make the speech or something like that. And it'll be more holistic. So I think it's a great idea, but I still want to hear what the parents think, because I feel like I'm only looking at one side of it right now. So I'm still open. I just want everybody to know I'm still open, but I think it's a good idea at this point. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Ryan. Dina?
Yes, I very much appreciate the presentation. That was very well done. I'm in agreement with the recommendation. My only concern is about the confidentiality of the class rank. If we're going to share it, say for scholarship reasons, how do you know that you want it shared for scholarship reasons? And once it's shared, how do the parents or the children not become, not know what they are, not know what their rank is? So confidentiality is my only concern, but I definitely agree that moving forward, it's something that we should be doing.
Carrie?
Yeah, my question was in a similar vein. It just seems like if it's the child's academic record, I don't know why you wouldn't tell them eventually if they wanted to know it. Like if you're going to tell the military or college, why wouldn't you tell somebody when they graduated, this is what your rank was, if they want to know? It's not something that has to be reported, but if they want to know, I think you should be able to find out. It's your record, you know, as a student. But I mean, I'm not sure where I stand on this. I need to think about it more. I could see a lot of pros. I could see some cons, but I think it was a good presentation to present the reasons why. So, but that was my only question.
Thanks, Carrie. I agree with Carrie. I want to listen to it and think about it a little more. Judy, go ahead. I see you.
Yeah, I want to thank you for the presentation. I have to say my gut reaction was a little bit of concern for cases where it might, prevent students from being able to supply that information for scholarships and admission. So I'm glad that you're considering one where it'll be, computated, but it needs to be provided for a specific reason. I really appreciate the presentation, because I really hadn't considered the fact that it really is a disadvantage to our students at the Western Center, and they work their tails off. So it was really enlightening. I agree. I need to think about it more, but the presentation was very persuasive, I do have to say. So thank you.
Anyone else? I think we got everyone.
If I could just interject just 1 second. So our goal here is that you would submit any questions, any families out there that have questions or want us to share something else at policy, those can be sent to myself and Peg Pennypacker, who's the chair of the policy committee at this point. Because we want the policy committee to really be able to answer the questions that families have or board members have in order to have a healthy discussion at policy. So please feel free to send them my way, and they will be brought up on April 19th.
Okay. That's excellent. If we're done with comment, are we ready to move on to our next revised 2020-2021 school calendar? And I'll turn it over to Dr. Roach.
Good evening, everyone. This presentation was actually much easier prior to last Friday, when we unfortunately had to do the functional closure based upon the information that everyone was aware of. So it's slightly revised based upon that information. I wanted to communicate out the impact of where we sit right now for the end of the year calendar, and then share a highlight or two for next year's calendar, as both calendars are on the end, are on the agenda for consideration this evening. So this is a copy of the revised calendar of the last 3 months. You saw a copy of this at a previous meeting, all color coded, but you'll see a new color on there because by having the functional closure and using the third emergency day last Friday, we have done our best to get creative with the opportunities and the options that we have available to us based upon all the virtual days that we've had, as well as the flexible instructional days, the FID days they call them, that are available to us to try to do everything we could. In the calendar that you're seeing here that was asked for approval tonight does still maintain the last student day as June 11th, even though they were off last Friday, and does still maintain graduation as June 10th. So you can see May 18th is a new color on this calendar here. It says flexible instructional day and teacher in service. So our students were off on May 18th for election day, because we have 2 buildings of the 6 at the used as polling places, and actually I just got a request for another building based upon something else. So we'll do our best to work with the local community to make that happen. Any rate, so we have election day on that day. So typically we would have off, and we have an in-service day already scheduled for our students. So if I can move this forward, and I can bring it back if anyone needs to see it again. We're asking, or we're proposing as part of this, and not that we need approval, but we can call this as a flexible instructional day on Tuesday, March 18th. In essence, would be an asynchronous day for students. So work, as you can see in the middle there, it would be an asynchronous day. Mrs. Bass led us through an application process early in the year for us to apply for 5 flexible instructional days through the state. We did get approval. We have not had to use those because we also signed the information for the flexible, the virtual days. If you remember that conversation, to provide that for the broken up schedule with the hybrid. I'm sorry. Oh, May. I said March. I'm sorry. Someone just corrected me. Tuesday, March 18th. Yep. It's May 18th. I apologize. You saw it on the calendar properly. So anyway, asynchronous learning for the students on that day. So there'll be work provided either prior to, the morning of, something posted in the major subjects, or in the secondary level, it'll be in a certain day of the cycle. And they will have an opportunity for flexibility throughout the day to accomplish that work. At the same time, our teachers will maintain the same in-service schedule that they had for the day. So the student day gets made up as an asynchronous learning opportunity. And as I said, maintain the 180 days prior to and finishing up on June 11th. And then the May 18th remains an in-service day. And unfortunately, we have to add a day for last Friday to get to the 190 days for our teachers later in June. So that's how we're hoping to maintain our last student day as the 11th and graduation as the 10th, as was shared prior, to use the opportunity there. So this actually is a good opportunity for us to practice the asynchronous day. We have not had one of those, and it may be moving forward, whether it's next year or the following year, the only option based upon the information from the state. We do believe we will be able to continue with virtual days throughout the as an option, but we're still waiting on justification and support from the state as we move forward. So this is an alternative for that day. So if there were plans for families on that day, they're not tied to logging in at a certain time and not tied to checking in but there is amount of work to be done for the day, and it's either followed up later that evening or maybe the next day it gets collected. We're still working on details with the administration and the teachers to fine tune that, but we have about a month and a half to do that. So, so I apologize for the top of the slide. I will correct that before this goes out tomorrow. So, are there any questions on this specific calendar? I see a couple no's.
I actually have one quick one. Do we know when the last day for seniors is?
I have to defer to Dr. Carpenter if he's still on the call.
He might.
So are you asking for the last class day or the last final day?
Oh, there's a difference. When's the last day seniors will be in school?
Well, so June 10th is graduation. We'll have practice 2 days prior, final exam. So the last actual class day would be, I think, let me look at my calendar here.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Do you know when finals are? That's a good enough judge for me right now.
Yeah, so June 2nd most likely is their last class period day, and then finals would start the 3rd.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? Or I'll send it back to Dr. Arch. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So moving on, we also have on today's calendar the draft calendar for next school year. So the highlights of a very traditional calendar, as we've said in the past, and as I think is all hopes and plans through the summer. We are planning on being in person 5 days a week next year. I know we have still some questions and unknowns that are out there right now, but that is how we're going to be planning until we know differently. And then we will send out a questionnaire a little later in April or early May to get some feedback from our families in terms of the instructional models that they are interested in or potentially available to them, so we know how to plan accordingly. There may be some families that are still interested in virtual based upon where things will be, and the number of people that are interested in that will help us guide our planning and preparation. It will be more challenging heading into next year, depending upon the numbers in terms of elementary versus secondary based upon the model that we're in right now. So hopefully we'll get that questionnaire out and collect feedback from our families and share that back. That'll definitely help us plan as we head into next year. Our first student day on the new calendar, Monday, August 30th. So that's the Monday prior to Labor Day, which is very similar. There are still 3 emergency or snow days built in, so we have that flexibility. There are some districts that have moved away from those, and I think they definitely helped us this year in a couple ways, and I'm definitely in supportive of keeping our those as options for our kids and our families. And sometimes it's just too much snow for us to deal with. So this year we were fortunate to balance through some virtual days, which was a new experience, and I think our teachers did a fantastic job, as well as the 2 major snow days and then 1 emergency day last week. We still have 6 early dismissal days sprinkled throughout the calendar for professional development and training. And I want to acknowledge the board for whenever that time was done in the calendar. That is something that other districts are envious for, getting work done and professional development done throughout the course of the year. It is very valuable. Often we see administrators arguing and fighting over time to have access to the teachers, and it has been it is very important, and we appreciate that that support is in there. And then obviously this is the 3rd calendar that I've been associated with, and we're hoping to have no changes next year, that let this calendar ride, and then maybe a year from now come with an adjustment or 2 for based upon snow days or emergency days. This year seemed to be the year of calendar changes, but it happened my first year as well in terms of pushing it a couple days and all the construction and stuff. So I was going to make it a goal, but I can't really work on that too much because some factors may be out of our hands. But very traditional calendar. You can see the information is there. Again, still 3 days, snow days built in, and all the breaks and everything else. So once we approve this, we will communicate this out to our families, because I know that it's important, starting dates and the holidays, and just for family planning. So that is the end of the calendar presentation. I would, if Mrs. Cunningham, you would be comfortable with me, I do want to take some time while I have the opportunity here. Prepared a couple slides based upon some information and feedback that has been coming across my desk. I know it's been across some of the other administrators' desks recently, and wanted to at least talk a little bit to the board and clarify a couple of topics and issues that are out there. So not that it's coming out of left field, but the idea with high school and middle school athletics in terms of masks, that has been a hot topic this week as we have started tryouts at the high school level and the middle school next week. And then the mandatory antigen testing as well that was discussed and approved 2 weeks ago, and as a part of the presentation a month ago from Mr. Kurzweg and Dr. Carpenter has definitely had an impact on us this week. And having the opportunity here to just put some information out there, and then happy to answer any questions from the board as we're moving forward. I know there are not items on there, but I know that definitely important and worthwhile the time. So if I could, you okay?
Yep, go for it. Thank
Yep.
you.
So the first thing is we'll be about facial coverings. So I know that what was approved in the health and safety plan, and I kind of copy and pasted some information here. So when this presentation is shared tomorrow, the links are all live, so people can click on those if they'd like to. But the sports-specific accommodation, individuals are required to wear face coverings in accordance with the Secretary's order from November 18th. That is all over the paperwork. It's still in place. So page 8 link is to our own health and safety plan where this is listed. And then the asterisk just below that statement lists the health and safety order specifically about outdoor face coverings with others who are not members of a person's household and unable to maintain sustained physical distance. So we can have a conversation about sustained. I know administratively that was a conversation there. But I think the feedback that I've gotten lately is about this school district or that school district, or they're doing this and they're doing that. What was approved in the health and safety plan by the board and presented by the administration by the recommendation was to continue with the facial coverings as per the Secretary's order. That is in line with PIAA, and it's also in line with the PAC League. And I'm going to have Mr. Kurzweg talk in a couple seconds about what the league has said, because we are part of the Pioneer Athletic Conference. Section 4C comes from the Secretary's order, this is where I believe where other districts are finding and out for not following that rule based on the way, or interpreting differently and or following that, where they are saying there's a piece in there about a business or school and they should not enforce face coverage requirements when it is unsafe to do so. So I know that some of the feedback that I've received is that it's unsafe to be running long distances, unsafe to be doing this activity, unsafe to be doing that activity. So I did reach out to a local superintendent and said that I'm getting this information, and he shared with me that there was a vote by a board that said that they were going to be not wearing masks in practices, not wearing masks in competitions, that they would follow the rules from the other school districts when they went to their district to respect their rules, but when they came on their home campus, that would not be a part of that, of wearing masks for that. That was a board vote that was separate, specific to masks, which I'm assuming is where this, that this is where they kind of pushed that in there. So why this district versus that district? I can't speak for another district. All I can tell you is what the feedback that we have gotten in terms of our health and safety plan, which is similar to the winter and the fall. So with that being said, let me move on. This is the information that was recently updated from PIAA. I'm not going to read it to you, but again, if you look at fourth or fifth bullet down, individuals are required to wear face masks in accordance with the Secretary's order. So that's coming right off PIAA's information. I pulled that. It looked like it was updated this Monday. And then there is the Section 3. If you look down further, you start to see Section 3. There are some exceptions that have documented medical conditions, and that has always been the case. I don't know there's been that many of them. I know when we went through the winter and went through wrestling, all that type of thing, there were still face coverings being worn, even though that Section 3 information was in there. So this is the information lifted directly off PIAA, which we said in our health and safety plan that we were going to follow. That was what the overall motion, if you remember, the motion was something about participating in spring athletics as per the health and safety plan and PIAA state guidance, and then the antigen testing. And then finally, here's where I need Mr. Kurzweg to chime in here, because he has much better handle on what is taking place with the Pioneer Athletic Conference and our specific league and what they have agreed to as a league.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you, Dr. Roach. So like Dr. Roach said, we, as many of you know, are members of the Pioneer Athletic Conference. And prior to each season, we have created return to play protocol, which we have had our principals and our athletic directors vote on prior to each season. That became protocol/policy for league play. Since we are only playing league games this entire school year, this has kind of been, where we have been following. There has been a lot of discussion this spring about the face masks and the face coverings. However, as a league, at the beginning of the month, all the principals and athletic directors did vote unanimously that unless there would be a change in the Department of Health's mandate for masks, that every district in our league would be wearing masks at all times to play games. One of the things that I continue to hear from is that why didn't fall sports wear masks? There was no mandate in the fall for masks to be worn while athletes were actively engaged. At that time, athletes had to wear masks at any time they were not actively engaged, but as soon as they went into the game, there was no face covering. So I think as a league, we discussed that if there would be an update to that mandate and they would go back to something that was similar to where we were in the fall, that we would look to adopt it at that time. But we felt very comfortable as a league, and we're all on the same page that for this spring, to where things are now, that everyone in our league would be wearing masks at all times.
All right, thank you, Bobby. So that, I think, wraps up the conversation and what I have prepared for the conversation on masks, that we were in line with the policy and the practice that was in the health and safety plan. So it's not simply a decision besides from board action at this time, because that's what's in the health plan to remove that overall plan. And then next, I know, again, a lot of the conversations most recently this week have been tied to the antigen testing program and the conversation specifically about mandating it for spring athletes. So I'd like to share a couple things. I know there's been a lot of conversations about Project ACIT. This is something that has been shared several times with the board, as well as several times with our families. I have been told it has not been communicated well enough, and that is feedback that is helpful. But I think that our team feels like we have done a good job explaining it, which has created some other conversations and questions about Project ACIT or about CHOP and those type of things. So I'm going to try to provide some information here that hopefully will clarify some of the topics about that. So it's data collected from testing is aggregate and contains no identifiable information. I know there's questions about the QR code in terms of the information that is there, but once that is entered and it connects with the test itself, when the information goes out, the data is not reported, is not identifiable. It is simply at the school level and the positive, negative level. Although positive tests are shared with the Office of Public Health as required to be communicated with them. And then actually this program was introduced to us to the district through the superintendent group, through the Montgomery County Office of Public Health, and supported with Dr. Arkush, and then obviously partnering with CHOP to make that happen. So again, I don't want to read everything. That uses the Binex Now is the initial test for the card test, followed up by a Q test, which is a confirmatory test. They are point of care tests. We are not collecting or testing DNA and any of that type of thing. It is simply a nasal swab for both tests, and the information gets discarded immediately in one of those red waste baskets that we have in all of our health suites. We have more now, and then they're collected by our normal trash company that collects our medical wastes and disposes of them. So none of that information is shared forward or tested any additional from that process. Current testing opportunities that are going on, again, these will be live links. About the staff assurance testing is what we started back in December talking about getting involved with. Symptomatic student testing has paid huge dividends for families and students in terms of they come down, they're at school, they come down, they're not feeling well, they get an antigen test, and they either know right away that they may be feeling sick and go home, but they do know if they completed the permission slip as well as the QR code, we're able to provide that test on site or at the educational center to know and give them peace of mind. And if they are positive, then they know what happens from there. The confirmatory test right now with students in the past has been at the Green Lane, is where the closest location from the county to take care of that. I can tell you from experience that we have lots of families taking advantage of the testing out of quarantine program as they're lined up outside the Ed Center, and Dr. Farina and her team has been supporting that to provide that opportunity for students. And then the next conversation, which I think you've heard us talk about before, has been high-risk populations of testing, whether this was about having students that are less than 6 feet just based upon their nature in their classroom, that are not able to maintain that, or they have trouble with the masks. We have not moved in that direction in terms of specifics. Athletics was another one, which obviously, we did. We made that recommendation. That's myself, as superintendent, and Dr. Farina, Dr. Carpenter, Mr. Kurzweg, had that discussion and felt that that was the next step to protect our student athletes from transmission, as well as our in-person students. As we were opening up our doors to more in-person, that was the logical step for us to make that. And then there's been other discussions about congregate activities. I think I mentioned a while ago that I had shared that there were some districts that were talking about prom or about graduation or about other places where they know that there was going to be opportunities for students to be less than 6 feet in those type of areas. So I will address graduation and prom on the next slide. Expenses, there's no district money or federal money that has been utilized to fund the testing program. As a part of the program, we are provided the information, the test kits, the Q machines, and all the supplies for that to carry that out at our buildings. And no district staff member is profiting. There's no profit sharing or anything that's associated with that. There's no information, no financial gain by the district separate from the opportunity to use the materials that we have access to. Again, a lot of questions about communication, and not every one of these links is clearly about athletic testing, but these are the links that have been sent out. We early started in December to the board here publicly, talked about the teacher testing process, the antigen testing process for our teachers. So we provided these reports, and I just want to share, so when this information goes out there, people can see that. And all the Friday updates there, February through there. Again, not all specifically talk about mandating athletic testing, but they do talk about aspects of the antigen testing program. They do mention CHOP. They do mention the Office of Public Health. They do put that information out there. And then specifically, I don't have the link, and we will get the link in there. There was an email that went out on March 17th from Mr. Kurzweg to our athletic families, explaining the program, explaining the QR code, which may have triggered a lot of the conversations and questions of people saying they were not aware of the details involved with the information or where the data is going, those type of things. And I know that we are on the Project ACIT site as a school district in Montgomery County. There are actually 11 school districts in Montgomery County that are participating in some level of testing. And they actually reached out to us based upon the organization and the way that Dr. Farina had put that document together to add it to the site. We didn't ask to get put on their site. We didn't ask for the promotion, but they had reached out to us and as showing other districts a way how to structure things through all the trainings and through all those opportunities. Future testing plans. We do not have plans to implement mandatory testing for students, for all students and staff. That was actually asked as a part of a conversation with the superintendents with Dr. Rubin, specifically about getting full groups of people so you could really see the impact. And that was not, we were not comfortable with that at all. We did not think that was going to be a part of what our testing program was going to be. So we declined on that area in terms of that. But we are not planning on having all students or all staff mandated this year, next year, in the future. That's not a part of what this is. I know that's been out there, but that's not. If it does continue, we would like to continue the voluntary symptomatic student testing that we've been doing for our staff and for our students. And even though we have vaccinations, they're continuing to encourage us to participate in the program. And now is the time, as we are seeing cases rise up, as we're now back in substantial, that we want to make sure we're doing all we can to provide the safest environment for our students. And we have decided that prom and graduation will not be utilizing antigen testing. We would like to use a screener or a temperature screener or something that is more manageable and appropriate for that event. So that is not going to be on the table for Upper Perk at this time. And then finally, I know that the question I've gotten probably the most is why? Why athletics and why that type of thing? So again, the recommendation to the board as early back as a month ago to at the workshop when Mr. Kurzweg and Dr. Carpenter presented, the why really is about providing the safest environment for our students. We are opening our doors to 4 days a week. We're increasing the number of students that are in a classroom. The numbers are still continuing to rise from where they were at the low point there. And we had this opportunity, and we did not do it in the fall or the winter. We weren't ready and didn't have the opportunity, and that may have been a conversation at that time. As you can see, social distancing, there is linked transmission that takes place in athletics, whether it's on the sideline or in competition with others. That is the areas that the county is seeing transmission taking place. So we want to identify anyone that has a high viral load. That way it's not spread to anyone else, and we can address it right away. We can identify close contacts. That way it does not get spread the next day in class or the weekend or even at their own home. And they're obviously they're traveling to away games, and it's another close contact area already in a high transmission sport. And then obviously, like I said, the availability of testing. So that was the overall rationale, besides administration making that recommendation to the board. And then finally, what you see there is what's clearly written in the health and safety plan that was presented to the board in terms of the details and the information. So I believe that's it in terms of, in terms of what I wanted to share from the board, from feedback that I've collected and feedback that I've been given over the past 2 weeks, let's say, to make sure the board had all the information, as I know that this has been a topic that has been brought forth.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Does any of the board members have any questions? Keith, go ahead.
I don't know if this is the proper time or not, but I've been thinking about this for the past 2 weeks since we passed the health and safety plan, and I personally would like to try and put a motion on the board to remove the mandatory testing. I don't know if we should wait to do that now or if we should do it during action items. Also, I'm experiencing problems with internet connection because it seems like everybody else is frozen just now.
I can still hear you.
I was just going to say, Madam President, it was breaking up a little, but in terms of adding a motion, my suggestion would be that any action that would be taken would occur at the conclusion of the action items. And at that time, any additional action items be considered.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm having issues with unstable internet connection right now. I missed, I checked on and re-checked it.
Switch to your phone.
So Keith, can you hear me okay? Kyle said.
Now I can, yes.
Okay. Yep, you sound better now too.
Switch
Kyle
to your
said
phone.
The next, at the end of that.
I will. Okay, in the meantime, I'll connect through my phone because I've been getting the max headroom syndrome throughout the presentation this evening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Anyone else have any questions?
I just
Go ahead, Carrie.
I just had a really quick question. I'm not sure if I heard it right. Did you say we went back into substantial this week?
Yes, last Friday we tipped to 107.5, I believe, in substantial, and 5.4% positivity. I don't know the exact number, but that's in there. Yeah, we were 2 weeks,
Okay.
2 weeks in moderate in the 90s, and then this week back up. So.
Okay, yeah, I saw it was 170 cases today in Montgomery County. So that's up significantly from 100 or so. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Carrie. Anyone else? No, hearing and seeing none. Thank you, Dr. Roach. I appreciate your presentation. And let's hope we have no calendar changes next year. That'd be much better. So now I'd like to move on to public comments on agenda items, and that'll just be on agenda items.
So we have some comments that were submitted, so I'll go through those names one by one, and then we'll allow them to speak. If I call your name, please just raise your hand and we'll allow you to speak. The first one is Jennifer Hartsell. And Jennifer, I see you on there with a couple of different comments, so you can use this full time for maybe the two that I think you submitted. Just your name and township of residence, please.
Thanks, Ken.
Sure. Jennifer, I think you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can. Thank you.
Okay,
Yep.
I'm sorry. I'm from East Greenville.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Roche said May 18th, there was going to be asynchronous. I just wanted to make sure that there was not going to be an 11 o'clock a.m. attendance requirement for these students. Because he did say it was kind of like log on when they could, because it was originally scheduled a day off. And then a virtual option for 2021 and 22 school year is we are going to have a virtual option for next year. Okay, I'll just continue. You guys can answer when I'm done. If we do have virtual for next school year, will transportation be provided for midday busing for tech students, both AM and PM? And if not, what kind of building placements would you have in place and staffing for the students who do not have a ride home due to younger students within the district and parents being home teaching them? You also stated that we are in the CHOP and OPH testing observations. Can you give me a date on when that was approved and at what meeting? Those are all the questions I had on the items that were brought up so far.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thanks, Jen. Just as a reminder, this is, right now, it's public comment. So I know there's probably some furious notes being taken, which I know I'm one of.
Yeah, there is. I'm sorry.
So the next one on our list is Alexis De Nofrio. Alexis, if you are in the Zoom call, would you raise your hand so I can allow you to speak? Alexis De Nofrio. I don't see that. If you raise your hand, we'll come back to you. Next one was Michael and Judy Sledgen, S-L-E-D-G-E-N, Michael and Judy. If you are listening, if you would raise your hand, we can allow you to speak. I know I have some friends checking with me, so I don't see that name either. Mary Beth Moreland. Mary Beth, if you are here and want to share your public comment, if you would raise your hand, please. Okay. Don't see. Sarah.
Mary Beth's here, Kim.
Okay. Mary Beth, can you raise your hand? I'm having a hard time finding you without your hand raised.
She may not know how to raise her hand.
Okay. Mary Beth, I promoted you to be able to talk. If you unmute yourself, you can share your public comment. Your mute button is down in the lower left-hand corner. We can try again later if you want to raise your hand. There's also, just right along the bottom, there's an opportunity with a little hand if you click that. So next one on our list is Sarah Bieber. Sarah, if you want to try to raise your hand, we'll get you on the screen to speak. Sarah Bieber. Okay, there you go, Sarah. If you could start, Sarah, you have an older version of Zoom, so when I promote you, you're going to be seen. I just wanted to let you know that before I click to promote you to a panelist. And then just please state your name and township of residence. Sarah, you're muted.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Sarah and James Bieber. We just wanted to reach out in regards to the BioNax Now spring sports testing. We just believe that my body, my choice, and we just don't understand why there was nothing in the fall and now you guys are testing for spring. The weather's getting nice. The surrounding schools around us, they're unmasking, they're going 5 days. We just were hoping that that's what Upper Perk would be doing. I feel like you're trying to push people out of Upper Perk instead of accepting people. I just want to let you guys know that the test itself is not FDA approved. It's only FDA approved through emergency. So I'm not sure how that could even be mandated. I feel like the testing is going to add anxiety, more depression, more feelings to these kids. I wanted to know, is a parent able to be present at time of testing? And also with the masks, I wanted to speak on the masks. I don't believe that masks protect you from COVID. There's no science that the mask is protecting you. James, do you have anything?
Yes, and if you look on the back of the boxes for the mask, it states on there, it does not protect against COVID-19 or COVID. So I don't know, I'm sure you're all getting that.
Oh, I also wanted to mention CDC guidelines are updated to mandated at 3 feet. So thank you guys for letting us speak, and thank you for everything, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Sarah and James, for your comments. Just to remind everyone that these are supposed to be comments on agenda items only. We don't actually have any of those requirements to be voted on tonight. So Kim, go ahead for your next.
The next one, thank you. The next one is Kim Hickson. Kim, I'm going to allow you to talk. Just please state your name and township of residence, please.
Yes, Kimberly Hickson, Marlborough Township, regarding the ACIT research study, and to the board of the community, you've been blindsided. Who is liable?
Madam President, you just commented that this comment period is solely for action items that are on the agenda. The comment that you are about to make, or you're started to make, is not on the agenda. Just to further clarify, there was a statement. Mr. McCarrick did indicate he may wish to make a motion relative to the health and the athletic plan. But that motion has not been made yet. If there is a motion added later in the meeting, there would be an additional opportunity to comment on any new motion that would be made.
Thank you, Kyle. Did you have anything else other than that was on an action item or an agenda item, Kim?
Well, I guess, may I please speak later?
Sure. That
Thank you so much. I'll wait for that. Thank you, Mrs. Cunningham.
Thank you.
I had called for Alexis De Nofrio earlier, and I do see her with her hand up now. So Alexis, I'm going to allow you to talk. Just state your name and township of residence, please.
Hi, I'm Alexis De Nofrio from East Craneville. And I wanted to know, as a student who does go to tech next year for virtual students, if I do have to go virtual at any point, will there be busing? And if there is not, what placement will be input so that way I am not stranded in the high school parking lot by myself with any other students who do not have a way to get home? Because as a student, that makes us feel like we are pushed to the side as virtual students, because everyone else gets to go from one bus to the next and to the high school. And because I would be virtual, I would not have that. And my parents work and do not have a way to get me home. So as a student, that just makes all of us virtual students feel like we're being pushed to the side, and nobody cares as much about virtual students as everyone does about the students who go in person. So I just wanted to know if there was any placement at all for us virtual students who will have to go virtual next year, if it does. And is there going to be midday busing for those students who don't, or who are virtual for next year? Because I may, if numbers are on the rise, have to become virtual again next year for a period of time. And if I don't have a bus, what am I supposed to do? That is all. Thank you.
Thank you,
Alexis. I just, again, remind everyone we're talking about comments on agenda items for now. We have other public comment at the end of the meeting as well.
So next on the list is JP Prego. JP, if you are here, if you would raise your hand, you have the opportunity for public comment. JP Prego. I also have next Christine Schmoyer. Christine, if there you are, thank you so much. Please state your name and township of residence.
Hi, Christine Schmoyer from Pennsburg. I do want to speak in response to the presentation that was an agenda or an agenda item. Can I do that? Or
the action item, it's for comments on action items that are being voted on.
Okay, because the agenda says comments on agenda items, so that's where I get confused. Just trying to follow the rules.
That's
So-
why we have the two public comments, one for just the action items before we vote on them, and then one at the end for general public comment.
Okay, because the agenda says comments on agenda items, not action items. So the publication or the presentation was an agenda item, so that's why I felt this would be the appropriate place. But if I need to wait, I'll wait. That's fine.
Thanks, Christine. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Next is Maggie Buckwalter.
Same thing.
Maggie, if you're here, if you raise your hand, thank you. There you are. Just your name and township of residence, please.
Hi, Maggie Buckwalter, Upper Hanover, and similarly, I would like to talk about the class rank issue, but if you prefer, then that's being slated to the end, I will wait.
Okay, thanks, Maggie.
Thank you.
Next is Jen Diebel. Jen, if you're here and you raise your hand, I can give you the opportunity to speak. Jen Diebel. And then one last call for JP Prego, and then we'll take the hands that are raised in. Okay, so I have Jeffrey Wilson, whose hand is raised. Jeffrey, I'm going to allow you to talk. Please state your name and township of residence.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Good evening. Jeff Wilson, Pennsburg. Actually, I'm going to have to hold off to the end as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Melissa O'Donnell. Melissa, can you please state your name and township of residence? Thank you.
Yes, I will have to wait till the end as well.
All right, thank you so much. And right now, Mrs. Cunningham, that is everyone with their hand raised and everybody who submitted public comment.
Okay, terrific. All right, well, I guess we'll move on then to, I'd like a motion. Well, first of all, go ahead, I'll look for a motion to approve retirements. The one on here being Melissa Dietrich.
If you wouldn't mind, could I actually make a grouping? I'd like to make a motion to approve the personnel in its entirety as well as action items A and B.
I'll second that. This is Keith.
Okay. All right. Any discussion?
I would just like to comment, I wish Mrs. Dietrich well. She's been a great teacher. Our family knows her well, and I wish her well on her next stage of her life.
Yes, me too. Dana, go ahead. I see you.
I had composed, I'm somewhat disappointed that Mrs. Dietrich has decided to retire. 30 years ago, my daughter had Miss Ardell as a second grade teacher at Marlboro. And I was hoping that in a couple of years, my granddaughter would get the benefit of her energy and enthusiasm. Best of luck at this exciting time, and you will be missed.
Here.
Yep, I agree. Known her for a long time.
Absolutely.
Oh, Judy, I'm sorry. I couldn't remember who had a hand up there.
That's okay. I just didn't want to miss this opportunity to wish Mrs. Dietrich well as, in her retirement, and she will be sorely missed. I do always credit her. I have a daughter who's a sophomore up at Bloomsburg studying early childhood education. She started talking about that after having Sherry Fasolka, for those of you who remember her, and Mrs. Dietrich back to back. That's when my daughter got her passion for education. And wow, Mrs. Dietrich, best of luck. We're going to miss you.
Yep, I'll say. Anyone else? A couple people, I can't see if there's hands up or not. So, well, having said, then so what we're voting on then, if that's all the discussion, is to approve Melissa Dietrich's retirement. And action item A, which is a motion to approve the UPSD revised health and safety plan in transitioning to a 4-day-a-week in-person model beginning Tuesday, April 6th. And also a motion to approve the revised 2020-2021 school calendar, reflecting a transition on April 6th, 2021 to a 4-day-a-week in-person instruction model. So if we don't have any more discussion, could anyone in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right.
Melanie, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to make a motion to approve the remaining action items C, D, E, F, and G. C is an approval of the 21-22 school calendar. D is an approval of the resolution to approve deputization of the following tax collectors. E is a motion to approve the service level agreement with Berks County IU for the real estate taxes. F is to approve Berkheimer for the vendor of collection. And G is to recommend the facilities committee to move with Barry Isaac for the high school varsity softball field drainage issues.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Keith. Any discussion? I'm thinking my two committees tonight, I don't even have to make reports because we're voting on everything on them. Noticed that earlier. If anyone has any questions about any of that. I don't see any hands up. So hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Thank you. Okay. Well, that moves us on to committee reports.
Melanie?
Yes.
This is Steve. May I make a motion to remove the mandatory antigen assurance testing from the spring sports and athletic health and safety plan?
So,
Second that.
Madam President, if I may just, that was an item that was part of a motion that was passed at the prior meeting. So the nature of the item is essentially to rescind that motion that was passed at the prior meeting. If that were to be passed, then there certainly could be an introduction of a new plan without that component part of it. So just in terms of the nature of it, it is a motion to rescind action that was taken by the board. The only notable impact of that is that it does require either a majority vote of the entire board, which would be 5 votes, or 2/3 of the membership, the quorum that's present. We have, I think, 7 members present, so 2/3 is actually the same. It's 5 votes. So if there is a second to the motion, then there would be discussion, public comment as indicated earlier, and it would require 5 votes to rescind the prior action.
Okay, so just to be clear then, if he would need to rescind the entire sports health and safety plan from that we voted on last time. That's where we're going with that. I just want to make sure. I want to be clear what he needs to make a motion to rescind.
Correct. I mean, the nature of the motion is it's rescinding the action that was taken by the board at the prior meeting. So if that were to pass, then there would need to be, in order for a spring sports program to be approved, there would be an additional motion at that point.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Summers, if I'm clear, we would revoke the entire plan. Would I then be able to propose that we take the existing plan that we're revoking and remove that one section regarding mandatory testing, which would result in no wait for approving a plan?
Correct. Yes.
Kyle, just to be clear, the motion that was approved was participating in spring sports, following the guidance from PIAA and the health and safety plan and mandatory testing. So I just want to be clear that the conversation is to rescind the entire motion first. That's good. And then a new motion goes on. It's not simply just plucking the health and safety plan out of that motion.
That's right. So there was a motion by Mr. McCarrick and Ms. Hopkins. Is that a second?
Yes.
Okay.
So at this point, there are 2 options. The board can have discussion amongst itself first, and then you can open it up for public comment, or you can take public comment on the proposed rescission of the prior vote, and then have discussion amongst the board.
All right, if I may speak, I'd like to give you my reasoning for proposing this, and then you'll all know my viewpoint and why I would like to have this happen. Okay, I made the motion to remove this plan essentially. I fully acknowledge there is a virus out there. It's contagious and can have devastating effects, but the side effects and after effects are even worse. Kids and parents alike are living in constant fear. Not just that they'll catch the virus and die, but they live in fear of being identified as having the virus or being asymptomatic or false positive. Kids are suffering from depression, from not having that social interaction with their friends, teachers, bus driver, whatever, all of which is part of the total education experience for our children. Our kids are being deprived of so much. I've always pushed to get our kids back into the classroom. I've pushed for in-person instruction back in the fall when Dr. Arkush stated, now's the time to do it if you want to do it. I voted for fall sports with its health and safety plan because it gave the parents and kids the opportunity to make an informed decision as to whether to take the risk and participate. I voted for spring sports with its plan, even though I never fully agreed with the recommendation for the testing. I think most of you know my feelings on a lot of these subjects. Okay, but I voted for it because once again, the parents and students would be able to make the decision as to whether to or not to participate. But over the past 2 weeks, after doing more research, talking with parents and even the kids themselves, I realized I was wrong. Okay. I realized I was wrong for not voicing my reservations about the mandatory testing of our young athletes. And here's some of those reasons. Parents feel that the conversation about the testing was not started soon enough to make informed decisions. It didn't give them time to plan for other things, such as if they decided not to play for Upper Perk, they could play for club teams instead. Not all schools are participating or following the same guidelines. You know, we're testing our kids, but not the kids they're competing against. We're forcing them to play with masks when other schools may not. Now, that may be wrong because of what Dr. Roche and Mr. Kurzweig developed tonight. So, you know, I'd written this earlier this afternoon while I was mulling things over. But some of the more important things are, I didn't consider that last year's seniors and juniors missed opportunities to be seen by college scouts, denying them a chance of possible scholarships to colleges and universities. I didn't consider the anxiety that this new test puts on kids, worrying about whether or not they'll test positive, and then they're labeled. And that's one of our big hot topics these days, labeling for everything. People are being killed for it. We're forcing them to play masks when most of the time they're socially distanced. Okay, we're going to adhere to PAAA rules. You know, that's about all I'll say for that. But there's the argument that sports is a privilege, so it's justified to do the testing. But sports and extracurriculars are all part of the overall educational system and experience. It helps them both physically and mentally. It's an outlet for them. It's a socialization tool. But the most important reason I have for now is the precedent that it sets. If we start mandatory testing for sports, where do we stop? Glee club, band, we've already had some of these minor discussions about we don't know what we're going to do with them in the future. You know, do we do it with the robotics, Boy Scouts, Frontiers Girls, the Lions Club, the Leos? You know, I have the utmost respect for our administration. They're doing everything they can to get us through these tried times, and they bring us these proposals. It's up to us to sort through everything and try and figure out the best course possible. But I'll say this right now. I will no longer vote for any mandatory testing for our kids. I would not subject my kids to it, nor my grandkids to it, and I cannot submit others to it. We're not hosting professional or collegiate sports where people are making money off our athletes. I watched the NCAA tournaments last week. Players there not wearing masks. Professional sports players not all wearing masks. You know, we're not making money off this. We're not supposed to make money off this. We're here to provide the best educational experience for our kids that we're able to. We're not getting any money for the testing. We're not making any profits on our kids playing these sports. We're simply giving the opportunity to learn, socialize, adapt, and be the best that they can be. I believe that the sports and extracurricular activities are part of the educational system, not just a privilege. And that's my reasons for proposing this. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. Any other comments from the board?
Can I go next since I second?
Sure.
Okay, the reason I second I don't have a student who plays sports, but I'll continue to vote for the rights of the students and their parents. Each family needs to decide what's best for their family when it comes to mask, playing sports with mask or not. However, I'm adamantly against testing children. The testing should be voluntary, just as any other medical procedure. It's a parent's decision. They should have the ability to either opt in or at least the option to opt out. It would be illegal and probably challenged if the district mandated anybody on the staff or employees to be tested weekly. Therefore, we shouldn't be mandating it for any student. And students should not be punished for their parents refusing to take the test. And basically the decision is that simple to me, black or white. Let the parents decide.
Thanks, Ray. Anyone else? Judy, go ahead.
Well, I really wish the world was black and white, but it's not. Yesterday, 80,000 new cases of COVID-19 were identified and 1,500 people died. Yesterday, just yesterday. Everyone seems to want to act like this pandemic is over, but it's not. And we need to get these kids in school. And this testing of the highest risk group of students we have is a way to keep those kids in the seats in the classrooms. Every study that's been done with regards to transmission at schools has shown that athletics is the main driver of transmission. This will identify our students who are not symptomatic yet so that they're not transferring it to the other kids in their classroom who are no longer going to be social distance. For those who all want to say, the CDC said we can go to 3. Well, you didn't read the whole actual article then, because they didn't say everybody could go to 3. They said that elementary can go to 3 because the benefits outweigh the risks. But if you're in substantial or high, that middle schools and high schools still need to maintain 6 feet of social distancing. Nobody says that. Nobody hears that part. So we're going to have kids crammed into classrooms without social distancing, whether you like it or not. I'm fine with that. I think it's important that we get them back in the classroom, but we have to keep them safe. We don't have to offer sports. Sports is a privilege. You don't have a right to play baseball. You don't have a right to run track. It's an option. And if you want that option, you can have your child take the test. I also, because I have kids in the high school, have spoken to students, and they said if they care enough about their sport, they have no problem taking this test. And I understand it. It's a safety measure. Why would we not want to use a safety measure to keep these kids safe if we have the ability? I would kill to be able to offer this to the students at my school, where I'm a pandemic coordinator. It's such a blessing, and I'm really struggling with why this has become such a hot button item. It's a Q-tip, run around your nose, put into a test, it turns a different color, you get the result, it's thrown into a red bag, and that's it. And this idea of being labeled, we need to identify the kids. That's the whole purpose, is to identify the kids who have COVID. 1,500 people yesterday died from it. Yesterday. I will not vote for this. I'm sorry.
Can I make another statement?
Thanks, Judy. Go ahead. I don't see any other hands up right now.
Okay. The swab has a chemical on it that causes cancer, known cancer carcinogen. And how many of those kids that died yesterday, how many were kids under 18?
It doesn't matter how many are children.
Yes, it does. We're talking about children right now.
Who can take it home to their grandparents and their parents. And it's still spreading. 80,000 new cases yesterday. We haven't gotten there yet. Let's use what mitigation strategies we have to keep our school open.
More children are dying of suicide than COVID.
I'd like to call for a vote. That's my right. I am calling for a vote. Thank you.
Well, I don't think we're at that point yet. We are still having board comment, but we also have to have public comment then on the rescission. Am I correct, Kyle?
That's correct.
Okay, so then Kyle, do we remain going through the rest of the board comments and then then the public has the comment and we're able to vote?
Correct. Yes.
I'm
And
done with my comment.
after the public has had an opportunity to comment, there certainly could be a motion to call the question, which is essentially moving directly to the vote. You just can't do that before you allow the public to comment.
Okay, thanks, Kyle. Do we have any, Carrie, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a quick comment just on the testing. So in the last month, I visited 2 colleges. One college was all virtual with my son, who's a potential college student. One was all virtual and one was fully in class. One had no testing and one had twice a week testing. Can you guess which one had the twice a week testing? The one that was all in person. The whole point of the testing is to make sure that you can identify who has it so it doesn't spread, so you could keep the classrooms open. We had to do the test before we even got out of our car at that college. So I'm not in favor of removing the testing. If we remove the testing, then I would strongly consider we need to think about, is sports still safe enough for it, especially if our cases are starting to go up again. So I wouldn't support this current motion.
Thank you, Carrie. I'd like to weigh in myself. I'm really not in favor of rescinding our motion as well. And I won't belabor the point. Dana, do you have anything before I move to public comment?
I thought we thoroughly discussed the measure at the last meeting, and I was happy with our decision then.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I don't see any other hands up. I think we'll move to public comment then. Kim, do we have any hands raised for this public comment on this item on the rescission?
We do. We have 7 hands, and I'll just start right at the top. If you were someone who was waiting to speak on this topic, please do raise your hand and we'll get Rick to you eventually. So first is Mike Long. Mike, I'm going to unmute you, and you please state your name and township of residence.
Thank you. Mike Long, Upper Hanover. So I appreciate you allowing me to speak. A lot of contradiction going on here tonight, and I'm really disturbed at the things I'm hearing from the board, because I really feel as if you guys are all over the place, and I think there's a lot of unfounded information, and I have a list, and I'll.
Oh, we lost you, Mike.
One of the things I'm sorry?
We lost you for a minute there, for a second there.
Okay.
I just didn't want you to keep going.
No, I appreciate it, Melanie. So one of the themes I heard tonight was family feedback, and I heard family feedback being brought up as it related to the school calendar and as to class rankings. You're going to ask for family feedback on those 2 items. Not that they're not important, but nobody asked for family feedback on mandatory testing. That's just unbelievable to me that the families weren't asked or being told. November 4th, when they put the mask mandate in place, and Dr. Arcusa, that's over 4 months ago. We've obviously seen a lot of changes since then. So I think that is an outdated thing to be using. You mentioned cases rising. Cases rising where? In the county, in the immediate area. Sports people or sports players are at a higher risk. Not a fact, not something that's ever been founded. Judy, my comment to you is that you are incredibly out of touch with reality. I think that you need to look at this in a different way. 80,000 people contracted the virus. Tell me what happened in our own backyard. Stop watching the news and them telling you what happened across the world nationally. Let's talk about what's happening right here, right now with our student athletes. And Dr. Drake, your son was tested in class, then we should test everybody. Don't pick on just the athletes. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments, Mike. Could I just also remind everyone that we should have this public comment in the spirit of good discourse, and it would be appreciated if there wasn't any calling out of certain board members, of any board members, just as we are not allowed to call out members of the public. I just want to remind everyone of that.
Next on our list is Kim Hickson. Kim, please state your name and township of residence, please.
Yes, Kim Hickson, Marlborough Township. Regarding the ACIT board and community, you've been blindsided. This is not a safety measure, it is a research study. Who is liable for this?
Kim,
Board members.
Kim, I'm sorry. We're talking about the rescission of the health and safety plan and
Yeah,
comment.
I'm talking about the ACIT, which is part of the health and safety plan for sports, which is the testing that you're doing for the athletes.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. Who is liable for this? Board members, how do you feel about the liability of this research study? In neighboring Quakertown, there are no masks at desks or sports. Who will pay for the children's mental health evaluations? This liability cannot be overlooked. Our children are not your guinea pigs to sell to CHOP. When one enters a research study or clinical trial, they are compensated. Who is compensating the athletes for this? We were not founded on socialistic views. We are God-fearing, loving, family-oriented, hands-on parents, and we do the research. Our children are not yours or CHOP's guinea pigs. All they want to do is play sports and return to normal. You cannot harvest our children's data. They are minors. The CDC and the Department of Health, along with CHOP, have no business in our athletes that keep their grades up and are active. What is even more ridiculous is that you kept this secret from the board and the parents. Why did you keep this research study a secret? This is a research study to collect RNA DNA from our kids' asymptomatic carriers of one virus. What about the other asymptomatic viruses like typhoid, HIV, Epstein-Barr, diarrhea, chlamydia, and poliomyelitis? Is CHOP testing for them too? Furthermore, are you testing and mandating this? Why not drugs and steroids? If you are dividing families over this issue, some kids want to play and parents pull them over this. Parents see the need for kids to play, but the kid refuses to do the mandates. Why are you trying to hurt us even more? Have we not been through enough? I beg you, the board, to overturn this research study this week, not only for the liability it will cause, but for the children. If cases are rising, it's due to the J&J vaccine as it sheds. Thank you for listening and God bless.
Thank you, Kim.
Next, we have Linda David Heiser. Linda, please state your name and township of residence, please. Thank you.
Linda David Heiser, Hereford.
Go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to speak up about the mandatory testing. I have no idea why we are only calling athletes out for this mandatory testing. The athletes are wearing masks. In school, you are wearing masks. So why are we saying athletes are around more people? They're around more people with masks. If the masks work, why are we all so scared? We're completely masked. And another thing, I want to know the stats. You keep talking about the numbers of the cases going up. How many cases are the kids under 18 years old? And I would love to have an answer on that, please. And since we went back to hybrid, how many cases have we actually had in the Upper Perkiomen school districts? I also want to know why, when the kids went back to school hybrid, you allowed the test to be voluntary and now you're making it mandatory, but only for athletes. Do you not want athletes? Like, you don't want anybody to play sports? Is that what you are coming against? And that's all I have.
Thank you, Linda.
So next we have Mary Beth Moreland. Mary Beth, again, your name and township of residence. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mary Beth Moreland from Pennsburg. I work in the healthcare field at a local hospital, and per the CDC guidelines, it is not appropriate to test anyone who is asymptomatic. If they are symptomatic, I'm fine with my child being tested, but it is not necessary. The Binax now is only 80% accurate, first of all, and I think we're traumatizing our kids. Our kids are looking to be socially interactive with their peers, and they're going to agree to be tested. And the CDC guidelines indicates that it is unethical and illegal to test someone who does not want to be tested, including students whose parents and guardians do not want them to be tested. Right now, our infection rate in Montgomery County is 5.7. Why we are not currently testing any of our staff that are going in the hospital and taking care of patients that have COVID. So I don't understand why we are testing our kids and requesting mandatory testing, and that's it.
Thank you, Mary Beth.
Next is Jeffrey Wilson. Great. Township of Residence and name?
Good evening, Jeff Wilson, Pennsburg. You know, I hear things earlier on this meeting of stress on school rank and, you know, things like that. But, you know, what about the stress on these kids? You know, I mean, they've been through enough. The mask wearing is I can tell you, I mean, I work for one of the largest healthcare systems in New Jersey. I deal with this every day. Okay, I deal directly with pathology, the virology and COVID-19 testing, the instruments and results, the med techs, and I can personally attest it from the doctors and the nurses and the med techs that since March 2020, they stopped performing all tests for the regular flu and everything was lumped into COVID and COVID statistics. So everything is COVID now. The data is all over the place. There's been no consistency, rhyme or reason. You know, the majority of the data that has been collected has been for those 18 and older. We're not talking about healthy sports kids here. You know, I just think, you know, you're performing testing on athletes and the healthiest of the healthy kids. It doesn't make any sense, you know. Real quick, recently PIAA allowed for the non-use of masks for boys lacrosse because they're wearing a helmet and mouth guard. A helmet, mind you, where there's an open plastic grid on the front of the mask and not protecting anything from escaping an athlete's mouth. Their logic is with the mouth guard that they're safe. So with that logic, it's safe to say that as long as the athlete's wearing a mouth guard, they should be okay to compete with no masks. If Quakertown, 5 minutes up the road, has loosened the mask restrictions, there's been no clear-cut transparency on who we're following, and this test is completely bogus, and they blindsided us with the ins and outs. And you know, if UPSD, if you guys are not benefiting financially or by some other means from this ACID program, you should have no issues whatsoever putting a halt to this unethical testing and mask mandates immediately. Thank you. God bless. Good night.
Thanks, Jeff.
Next, we have Jennifer Hartsell. Jennifer?
Hi, again, I'm from East Greenville. I agree with Kim Hickson in everything that she said. I don't understand why we are forcing a mask issue within our athletes when we're playing against competing schools that don't even have the mask mandate. It is senseless and pointless to require mandatory testing for our athletes when we're playing against how many other schools that don't even require it. The other question I have is, what is the wait time of contraction to testing? I mean, if standard contraction time is 5 days in contact with COVID person in order to test positive. So that means technically if we have a game on Friday, they can't get tested until Wednesday. We don't get results back until Friday and they have a game Friday night. So they're going to be notified the day of game that they can't play. How is that fair to our athletes when no other district that we play against is mandatory testing, nor is it mandatory mask? Are we mandating flu shots and flu testing prior to playing in flu seasons? No. So why would we mandate COVID testing and COVID anything else in regards to playing sports? All of our students are wearing masks, along with many of the other local districts around us. And if parents and students are that concerned about spreading COVID, they're not going to go see their grandparents. That's basically all I have to say.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Next is Melissa O'Donnell. Melissa, name and township of residence. Oop, I just lost you, Melissa. Sorry, if you did want to talk, please raise your hand. Oh, there you go. Okay. Go ahead.
Hello, Melissa O'Donnell from Pennsburg, PA. Good evening. First, I want to say thank you to everyone that's present tonight, especially the parents who are here to voice their concerns and stand up for their children. I've sent many emails this week. Dr. Roche and I have become very familiar with each other and some of the board members. With many questions. I felt some were answered and some were danced around. So instead of questions, I would like to more make a statement. I feel as parents, we should be able to have a choice in what happens to our children or test procedures that they receive. I could sit here and spout off facts and data that don't support this decision, but I fear that will fall on deaf ears. Instead, I'll give you some examples. Last spring, when all this happened, my 7th grader was playing baseball, and they lost their chance to go to Cooperstown that they had worked on for many, many years. They had a late season, but they still played baseball, and they had no cases whatsoever. Then he played football in the fall for Upper Perk. There were absolutely no cases and no problems. During the winter, he doesn't play any sports, and he does snowboarding. So he was up there about 3 times a week. And also, we've had no problems or issues. Currently, my 6th and 7th grader are enrolled in charter school. And that was what I felt was best for them at the time, because I didn't want them sitting in masks all day, because I'm able to make that choice for them. My kids do miss being in-person school, but they are thriving without it. And I would just like to say that I wanted to offer a compromise. I've heard so many people, board members, speak tonight about testing positive and bringing this to school. My compromise was this, and I'm sure many parents that are against the testing would be okay with this. Why can't we allow those children that opt to test out to remain virtual? They're not bringing anything into the school. Yes, they're going to their sports, but they're not coming into school. And as somebody else brought up, you know, when you take that test, how long is it till that shows up? Or when you contract COVID, how long till that shows up? We need to stop putting fear in our children. They're already seeing this everywhere in the world. They're on social media. They see this. We don't need to make this any worse for them than it already is. Please do the right thing and allow our children to have their medical, religious, or personal freedoms. Do not take that away from them because you have fear. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Next is Suzanne Milkovich. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. Suzanne, go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much. And you did say it correctly. So I'm an educator myself, and our school struggles with this too. I did read the email on February 10th that said that this antigen testing was going to be voluntary. So what made me concerned was that now it's mandatory. With all of the numbers, you can look up any website. I literally just taught exponential growth today with COVID graphs. You can make the numbers suit your purposes and your agenda. But what we have to do is we have to stop letting fear rule our actions and our reactions. My son played soccer. I didn't get to go to all the soccer games because we weren't allowed to attend. And I was okay with that because my son got to play. He also wrestled. He wrestled with a mask on and he did very well. I didn't get to go see him wrestle, not once. And I was okay with that because my son got to wrestle. And I want my daughter to be able to play lacrosse with a mask on. What I don't truly understand is the fear that's encompassing us to encourage us and to justify mandating my daughter to take a test once a week. And regardless of our personal issues, I do think it's an invasive test. All right. It is something that you are putting into a part of your person. And I don't think that that's acceptable. Sorry, I have my list of topics to talk about here. Upper Perk has the strictest mask and COVID policies of any school district around here, and probably in the state. And it's been great. I think we've kept our numbers down. And when I look at the Montgomery County website, there's no cases today. So those are things we have to keep in mind. But why do we have to go stricter? Why do we have to go so and mandate it? And why are we using the one population that you have something to hold over them? You have leverage. Either you let us test you or you don't play. But you're not doing that to any other group of students. And that's my problem. Right there is my problem. It feels discriminatory. And by the way, with the labels, if the student tests negative or tests positive, everybody knows. And that kind of goes against HIPAA. So if you are going to mandate the testing, make sure that it's individualized testing and that there's no one else in that room. All right.
Thank you.
Next is Shannon Beeler. Again, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. Shannon, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having the opportunity to speak to all of you tonight. I have concerns about.
Sorry, could you just state your municipality when you start?
Oh, pardon me, certainly. Upper Hanover, Shannon Beeler. So when I received the March 17th email stating that this testing for the QR code or having the QR code information filled out was mandatory, I wanted to understand why. I have had individuals in my family that have suffered from COVID. I think whether you've lost a job, you've had someone sick, you have this capability of not knowing where COVID's coming from, almost like this elusive, urban legend coming to get you at any point of time, is something that's hard to deal with on many levels, many facets. But getting back to this QR code, I find it troubling because it's being mandatory. And I did have the capability to go on their website today to check out more information about this program that Upper Perk is involved in. And on their website, policylab.chop.edu, there is a link that says Sample Project ACET permission slip. And on that permission slip, it says that it's a voluntary opportunity to participate in this. Based on how Upper Perk has rolled out this product of participating in this project, we never received a permission slip, nor was I offered the opportunity of a permission slip. We only were offered the fact that it was mandatory. You must fill out this information or your child can't play. I feel that's a violation of our rights. I don't feel it's fair. And to the earlier comment someone had made about we don't have a right to play, we have a right for certain other things. It says in the Constitution, we have the right for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That is our right as an American citizen. Now, I feel a lot of compassion for a lot of the points that have been taken tonight, for people that have been impacted for COVID, myself included. But we cannot continue to live in fear. We need to have common ground. We need to find a solution that I know it's going to be impossible to make everybody happy, but making this mandatory testing is not appropriate. It even says on the website that there's a policy form, the Sample Project ACET permission slip, that each parent, because they're minors for ages K through 12, we should have had access to that. And we were not, we didn't get it.
Shannon.
And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Shannon.
Next is Maggie Buckwalter, name and township of residence, please. Thank you.
Hi, Maggie Buckwalter, Upper Hanover. First up, yeah, I'm interested in the permission slip issue as well, but I guess you guys can hit that at the end, hopefully. But I would just like to say that I am not, thrilled with the testing. I have previously seen my 2-year-old child get this kind of nasal swab. She lived through it. I needed the information about what she had, what her infection was, and I wanted it to be logged with the Department of Health because RSV and the flu were going around. It was my duty. But beyond that, we have a lot of things that we have to do to add to our knowledge base right now because it's spreading so rapidly still, even though we'd like to pretend that it's all butterflies and sunshine since it's springtime. But let me just say that I think that, again, sports are an optional activity. We are not requiring it for the school day. So I think that that's something to be kept in mind by everybody who is talking and listening tonight. And also, my daughter is a college student, and in order to participate into her program, she must undergo twice weekly mandatory testing. Yeah, she could say no to it, but then she can't complete her program. So this is not something that's so out of the ordinary in terms of the risk benefit that our children are going to see from this. And also, somebody had said that people who are in a trial get compensated. That's incorrect. That many times people who are parts of a trial do not get compensated. So that's something that I wanted to clarify as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Maggie.
Next is Kim Durstein. Kim, name and township of residence, please.
Hi, my name is Kim Durstein. I'm from Red Hill, Pennsylvania borough. I'm just calling to say that my daughter Natalie had signed up for track. I went through all of the stuff to get her physical, to get everything. And then we get an email saying that she has to be tested. I'm sorry, but my entire family has, I understand that COVID is very, very contagious and whatnot, but I don't think that people are being honest about the survival rate, the recovery rate. And my daughter played basketball with no problem inside. We didn't get to watch it. We watched it from home, which was fine with me. I don't care as long as she gets to play. I feel like that was way more dangerous than it is to run a track outside. And when the temperature gets high and they're breathing in their own carbon dioxide, I think it's very unhealthy. But I feel like mandating this is not legal. I don't understand why you think that it's necessary. And I just feel like somebody somewhere had to get this program and run with it. And I feel like we were not notified, and I will not allow my child to run track if she has to be tested every week if this isn't overturned. She is in another program, so she's not going to be sitting home, but I feel like all these kids have been sitting home extremely too much. They need the exercise. And me as being her parent, not letting her test means that she will not get to participate with her friends from school. So I feel like parents should have had the option just like they do in school, because in school she will not be tested either. I will take her somewhere to get her tested while I'm present. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kim.
Next is Tom Mannion. Again, township of residence and name, please.
Hi, this is actually Hope Mannion in Hereford. How's everyone? I just wanted to offer an alternative perspective to a lot of the voices that we've heard tonight. And I should probably credential myself a little bit. I'm a healthcare actuary. I study public health and health data, health claims utilization across the nation, and I consult to major employers. You've heard of my clients. I just want to express shock at a lot of the misinformation that I heard tonight. The swabs don't cause cancer. There's no such thing as an anal swab. People do not get compensated for trials. This is not the flu. The numbers are not made up. You can't just fit the numbers to your own purposes. Just carbon dioxide does not hurt people. Just want people to really maybe take a moment and trust the experts. Many of us do not know more than scientists. And I know that because I read the scientist stuff all the time, and I still am having a hard time keeping up. You really need to trust the experts. I wanted to voice support for the board and thank you for enacting reasonable policy during this time. I question why, if we're going to praise the policy for keeping our numbers so good in this district, why now we would back off those policies and start to loosen things and not stay vigilant. If you think getting a nose swab or wearing a mask is damaging to your child, so is losing a teacher, parent, grandparent, or whatnot to COVID. And let me tell you, you're talking about fear. You're creating the fear. The kids don't care. You're the ones having a problem with this. We are all making sacrifices. Sports are optional. And if it takes a swab in the nose to keep your kids, their coaches, the parents around them, the grandparents at home, and other school districts safe, I don't really understand why people aren't willing to make that really small sacrifice. Thanks, board. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, Hope.
So next is Christine Schmoyer. Name and township of residence.
Hello, Christine Schmoyer. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me? Oh, I have to unmute. Hold on. Nope. Can you hear me?
You're
Okay.
on.
I've been doing this for months and I still am not very good at it. So it's my understanding that the issue being voted on includes both testing and mask wearing. My biggest concern is that the athletes continue to wear a mask, sitting in a classroom, going to lunch, whatever activities that they're doing at school is very structured. There's a seating chart. They know for contact tracing who is near whom, where, you know, when and where. But running around in whatever sport they choose is not structured, and the masks should be worn to protect both themselves and others from spewing potentially infected whatever. I'm not a scientist, but you know, that's important because they are randomly running around wherever, and that layer of protection needs to be provided. And that's it.
Thanks, Christine.
So
Do we have any new hands?
No new. Nope.
No new hands?
I've already spoken.
How many hands do we have up? We have a lot
3.
more to go in our agenda here, so I want to make sure we.
There's 3, and I believe they've already spoken, Mrs. Cunningham. In this.
Well, I
did
kind of
call
like to
for a vote
move.
before.
I'm sorry?
I did call for a vote before.
Okay.
Oh, let them talk. There's only 4 of them.
There's a 4th now that just raised that has not yet spoken.
Okay, well, let's pull up the one that has not spoken. I appreciate that.
Julie Kelly. Township.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, Julie Kelly, Upper Hanover. I'm sorry, I got disconnected. I didn't realize my hand went back down. I'd like to say I support Judy in this. I feel like we need to keep the athletes safe to keep everyone safe and remain focused on keeping the kids in school, because that's the goal, is the learning, not the athletes. The athletes are great, but we really need to focus on keeping the kids healthy and in school so they can learn. And that's really all I needed to say. So
thanks, Julie. Thank you.
There's one more additional hand that is new, Mrs. Cunningham.
Go ahead.
2 more. Vicki Joe, please state your full name and township of residence. Thank you.
Vicki Lightcap with Pennsburg Borough. I think one thing that's not being considered here is most of these children are playing together in the streets, on the basketball courts, in the baseball fields right now. And to submit children when it's listed as illegal and unethical, to put them into a testing area just so that Dr. Rubin can map asymptomatic kids is not fair, and the parents should know about that. As a grandparent, I got to tell you that to submit and mandate that a child has to do this, especially everybody's saying sports doesn't matter. It does matter to special education kids. It does matter to kids who are fighting anxiety right now. They need to be outside. And yet the sports that were inside didn't require the testing, but the sports that are outside, and the majority of the kids are more than 6 feet apart with what they're doing in sports. And that's when you decide to test. It's just not fair to the children. And to create this anxiety for the parents and the kids when they thought that they were going to get a chance to be outside is not fair. To just fill a mapping thing with Dr. Rubin. I've been doing a lot of research on the Policy Lab COVID-19 response. I agree. Just Google ACIT and really see what this program is about. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki.
And there's one remaining hand that we have not yet heard from.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
I think I hit the wrong button. Dawn Keenan.
Hi, this is Dawn Keenan from Marlborough Township. I want to say thank you to the board and all of our administrators for all that you've done with regards to the safety protocols that you're in place. And we have to continue to revisit these protocols as things change. I realize that we're getting, further advanced on this virus. However, we are not at the end game here. Let's keep the layers of protection we have available, especially now that we're sending all of these kids back to school that aren't remaining virtual. I have a daughter that does want to play sports. I have a daughter that's been dancing since last July and has missed a ton of things with a mask and is getting through it, and she will do what she needs to do in order to participate. She's losing out on a number of other extracurricular activities within the district because they don't have the opportunity like sports do, but sports is a higher risk. And we need to take that into consideration. So I believe we should keep the mandates not the mandates, but the decisions that have been put in place by the board and not go back on them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dawn. Okay, I'd like to, I believe we've heard, unless there's any new hands up, I believe we've heard from everyone once at least.
There's two that haven't spoken.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Melissa Leinbach, name and township of residence, please.
Melissa Leinbach, East Greenville. I just want to reiterate some of the things that have been said before, but I want to remind people that the testing was not available. It was not a program that was set in place when winter sports started. I believe that most of the board members would have voted for this testing for winter sports had it been available at that time. It's available now. I think it's a great program. Other parents are saying their kids won't play a sport if they don't have this testing. I'm not sure my daughter will be comfortable playing a sport if the mask and the testing is not required. She feels more comfortable with the mandates that you've put in place, and so do I. So to take those away, to make our program less safe when we are competing against schools that aren't as safe as ours, I find it pretty ridiculous to even consider putting our kids at a higher risk. That's all.
Thank you, Melissa.
And the last one is Emily Rowland. Name and township of residence, please.
My name's Emily Rowland. I'm from Pennsburg. I keep hearing, my main concern is I keep hearing that everyone keeps referring to our athletes as a higher risk. And that's what I'm having trouble understanding, because I feel like our athletes are the healthiest students in the school district. These kids have the strongest immune systems. I think the higher risk people, we really can't control what other families do outside of school. So, I mean, we have hundreds of families attending Bear Creek. We have, I think, a higher risk category would be the families with children going to after school programs and daycare centers. I feel like, athletics was targeted. I mean, I think there's a lot of other higher risk areas. So now we're going to, herd our children in like cattle to a testing center at a ticket booth, which to me doesn't seem that safe either. We're supposed to, we're encouraging our children to social distance, and now we're all encouraging them to meet at the same time to be tested. To me, it's kind of like the masks either work or they don't work. And especially for athletics, the more independent low risks that we did in fall sports and winter sports, the independent like golf and tennis, track, where there's really no contact. That's what I'm having another issue too with the masks, where they have the 6 feet distance. Once you're past that, if the mask can't come down. But that's about all.
Thank you, Emily.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I think I'm ready to close public comment, and we'll call for a vote. Kyle, if you can remind us exactly what it is we're calling for the vote, just to make sure everyone's clear.
Sure. And if I could just, there were a couple comments made about the legality of the mandatory testing program. And I was asked that question during a prior meeting and stated my opinion that it is permissible. Obviously, no court has been asked to address the legality of antigen testing. It's a relatively new issue, and things take a while to get to the courts. But based on other decisions that courts have issued involving extracurriculars and student athletes, and as was mentioned a couple of times, the privilege, and whether you view it personally as a privilege or a right, the courts have recognized it as a privilege. And so it's certainly my view that the authority of schools to adopt health and safety protocols would allow the district, the authority to have this program if it is in fact continued. So in terms of the motion that is before the board at this moment, it is to rescind the motion that was passed at the prior meeting. It was under old business item A at the prior meeting of the board, which was motion to approve Upper Perkiomen School District to participate in spring athletics as per PIAA guidelines and the revised UPSD spring athletics health and safety plan, which includes weekly mandatory COVID-19 antigen testing for all student athletes and coaches. So a motion in the affirmative or an aye would be to rescind if you wish to rescind that prior vote, and a no is to maintain the plan as it was approved at the prior meeting.
Okay. Any last minute questions from anyone? Otherwise, I would call for all in favor of rescinding that action.
I have a quick question. There were a lot of comments and such brought up by parents that I would kind of like to hear be addressed. Will we be doing that at all?
Well,
I heard some things like it's a research study, but I've been told that we didn't enroll in a research study. So I'd like to hear the answer to that.
The answer to that before we vote or after we vote?
I'd be fine with afterwards because I know how I'm going to vote, but I don't know other people. I don't know, but I just there was so many things parents brought up that I feel we need to
address
because if we just vote on it and then go away, then they're never hearing the information.
Okay.
It's just a thought.
Well, can I ask a question for that, Judy?
Sure.
If you found out it was a research study, would it change your opinion?
Well, I don't.
I know it's a loaded question. This is a difficult topic.
What I'm saying is parents. What my point was is parents brought up a lot of things, and we're calling for a vote, but we never actually addressed any of the things they brought up. And to me, I just feel like for transparency before the vote, maybe we should, if there were any things that were said by parents that aren't accurate, maybe we should identify that.
So, Madam President, just procedurally, the board can certainly continue to discuss this issue, and that discussion can be asking for further details on something. You can continue to debate and discuss this as long as you'd like. If there is a calling for a vote or a calling of the question to end debate, that actually does require, under the procedural rules, a 2/3 vote to end debate. So you can certainly continue to have debate and discussion. You can ask questions and you can continue to engage in debate for as long as board members have questions or concerns or would like to have additional information. If a board member, though, calls for the vote and there's a second to that, then we would just immediately have a vote as, are there 2/3 of the board in favor of stopping discussion and moving to the vote? And then we would do that. So that's just procedurally where we are.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cause a problem. It's
okay. No, I agree that you brought up a lot of good points, and I do agree. I feel some of them were answered in Dr. Roach's in his presentation earlier and the things that he addressed earlier. But I do know that there's other questions as well. Do anyone else have any thoughts on that, what we should be doing right now?
I think you're going to find not all scientists agree. So we could sit there and have this discussion going on, and you're going to have studies from both sides of the spectrum that are going to prove each other right or wrong. So what Judy might consider being misinformation or wrong, I might consider correct and have a different study to back up my thinking. So I think that we should just move forward at that point. unless
Okay,
anybody.
I don't think that anyone was trying to change anyone's mind. I think, Judy, if you agree with that, I don't think that's what you're trying to do. I just think we were trying to make sure that the public got their answers and that they were clear on why we're doing what we do and, you know, what we're listening to. Okay, yep, Judy's agreeing with me. I see that. I thought that's where you were going with that. All right, so.
Can we get a roll call when we do vote?
Sure. So are we calling for a vote? Are we discussing any more topics? Can someone else please weigh in on that? All right.
I don't think there's more. Go ahead and call the vote. Proceed.
Okay. All right, Mrs. Castle, could we have a roll call?
Mr. Cunningham,
No.
Dr. Drake,
No.
Mr. Hipser,
No.
Mrs. Hopkin,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinnis,
No.
Mr. McCarrick,
Yes.
Mrs. Cunningham,
No. Okay, so the motion does not pass.
correct.
We will not be rescinding. Okay. So I can move on from that topic and we can go to committee reports. Just to be sure, I don't want to miss anything. I see Kyle shaking his head yes, so I'm good with that. Okay, so we'll start with special ed and people services. Ms. McGinnis.
Should have known I'd be first. Just taking a break, I apologize. The People Services and Special Education Committee met on March 22nd at 7 p.m. We started off with a discussion of the MTSS framework review. For those of you who might not remember, MTSS stands for Multi-Tiered System of Supports. A little refresher on that, MTSS is a evidence-based model of instruction, for providing instruction to all students. It's not just a special ed program, and we talked about how the decision-making is needs-based for individual students, and decisions are based on data. It was a really good discussion of where we are with MTSS. There was in a few years ago, I guess it was like 2 years ago now, there was some concerns with it. The district did do some assessment of the program and have instituted a lot of standardized procedures and processes. It's not perfect yet. It is a work in progress, but it is getting better. So that was really good news. We also discussed the 2021 PA Climate Survey. You guys might remember, usually at the beginning of the year, we have a discussion about the results of this survey. The window for providing the survey is going to open up soon. The data that we get from that, a lot of that data is used as a basis for requests with grant money for safety programs. So it's really great if we have good information. Sometimes the information, if you guys remember from last year, sometimes it's not always the happiest, but it's important that we know it. So we do encourage everyone to participate. It is open to students. I believe that Dr. Roach has brought it up in his update, and parents may opt out of it. You may say that you don't want your child to take the study, if you participate in the study, but it does just ask about, how people feel about safety, bullying. It's really great information for us to get, so we know where to target, interventions with regards to the climate and safety. Staff also can participate. They will. Every member of the district employees gets a chance to fill out the survey, as do parents. And also, we're going to make a really concerted effort this year to get more community involvement, which means even if you don't have a child in the school district, so like, if you're just, just a community member with no ties whatsoever to the school, we still want to hear from you. The district still wants to hear from you. So Dr. Farina is looking at different ways to try and really get that out to the community this year. We have some great parent trainings coming up. April 15th, we're doing Understanding the IEP. I think that's phenomenal that we're offering something like that. You know, so many parents go into IEP meetings not really knowing what to expect. They can be a little intimidating if there's a huge group of people there. So I think that's a wonderful one. That's from 5:30 to 7:30 on April 15th. And then on May 6th, we're actually offering 2 different times. One from noon to 1 and another one from 5:30 to 6:30. And that one is Autism Initiative Intensive Teaching. So if you're interested in any of those, keep an eye on the website for when registration opens up for those. Our next meeting, is, help me out, Dr. Farina, I didn't write it down.
April 26th.
Thank you, April 26th. And we always welcome public at the People Services and Curriculum and Instruction beforehand. So a lot of times people go to curriculum and instruction beforehand and then just hop on mine right afterwards. It's really great if you're interested in the doings of the district. If no one has any questions, Madam President, I am done with my report.
Thanks, Judy. Anyone have any questions for Judy? That was a good meeting, by the way. Yep. Next up, we have Curriculum and Instruction Committee and Dr. Drake.
Yes, we had our meeting in the same day as Judy, March 22nd at 6 p.m., which was a few days ago. A couple highlights. We got some information on supervision and evaluation updates for the UPSD plan. Just an interesting fact. It looks like several hours are spent in class instruction and then also in coaching and development for teaching staff, which I think is a really good thing. The strength of an organization depends on the strength of the employees, and it looks like we put a good amount of time into that, so it was nice to hear. Other things that we talked about were an update on state assessment testing. We will still be doing the examinations this spring, I believe it's the Keystones. And we also got an update on full day kindergarten, a timeline for work, talking about what a report card would look like. And then also one highlight was a talk about personnel. There's a new position description for one of the new staff members, which would be a special/instructional coach dual role. So that would help to do the specials and then also in coaching and implementation of the new full day curriculum. So that was exciting to hear about. And then there was some foreshadowing about the class rank discussion, which we had today. So those were the highlights of the meeting. And the next meeting again will be on the 26th at 6 p.m. right before the Special Ed and Pupil Services meeting.
Thank you, Carrie. Anyone have any questions? Also a good meeting. If not, moving on. I know Peg isn't here tonight, but I think Dana, are you doing the extracurricular?
Yep, I am doing it.
Okay, you're on.
All right. The extracurricular committee met last Thursday, March 18th via Zoom. In keeping with the committee mission to champion the efforts outside the classroom and highlight successes, we invited guests that included advisors for the Speech and Debate Club, as well as the Drama Club. The High School Speech and Debate Club advisor, Mrs. Angela Traub, offered a brief history about the restart of activities 5 years ago, as well as describing the challenges encountered with online preparation. Currently, the club counts 15 members who meet mostly bi-weekly, but even more often when events are imminent. The club was scheduled to participate in 4 competitions, including events at LaSalle College High School, the Upper Perk Rotary 4-way speech contest, and the Southern Lehigh event. These events can be grueling day-long affairs. In addition to Mrs. Traub, club officers Sierra, Sydney, and Soren attended the meeting. Next, the high school drama club advisor, Mrs. Alicia Austin, shared a slide presentation highlighting some previous presentations offered during her 13-year tenure at Upper Perk. Mrs. Austin emphasized the importance of community involvement in the success of the drama club and touted the skill building associated with participation, including sales and marketing, design and engineering, as well as technical and makeup. Club officers Tia Leister and Emily Noska also participated in the presentation. Although the onset of the pandemic forced the cancellation of almost the entire schedule of the Addams Family last year, the 65 members are looking forward to productions when health guidelines permit. Finally, middle school drama club advisors, Mrs. Pam McGovern and Mrs. Waticha, described their efforts to nurture the passion of students in the drama arts. Due to COVID restrictions, this year's activities have shifted to a virtual setting for the 30 or so club members. The advisors have been successful in using their connections to bring special contributors to the meetings, including professionals in set design, stage lighting, and costuming. Also using monologues and critiquing of other shows have also helped to keep the students active until live shows can once again take place. Participation in speech and debate and drama clubs not only bolsters student confidence, but presents a highlight on a student's resume. The extracurricular committee is scheduled to meet again on Thursday, April 15th at 6 o'clock via Zoom. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dana. Any questions for Dana? You were a one-man show tonight for that. Mike isn't here either.
Yeah, our committee was hit hard by injuries.
Yes, they were. Down for the count. Okay, next up is facilities, and that would be me. So our last meeting was March 18th. For our Giza project update, the high school, the new chiller has been delivered. It's scheduled to be installed, and they're working on that now and operational by April 19th. The good news on the ductwork that we were all so scared of before is that it's not anywhere near $3 million, and it's been inspected, and it's not nearly in as bad a shape as we were told. So that's good. I don't have full numbers on that yet, but we're working on that. Thought a little good news, was happy. We do have, unfortunately, a little bit of asbestos that needs to be remediated. We'll be working on that. The new lighting will be demoed in some classrooms, and in each building, it'll be done in each building in a few areas just to make sure everybody's good with it before we order and put in all new LED light fixtures. The construction meetings are ongoing for the Giza project. It's every 2 weeks until the project is done. In fact, I missed the one this morning, but I went to the last one. We discussed full day K, and we'll be having an architectural proposal, which we already voted on, to permit Muhlenberg Green Architects for the secure entryway / storefront that we're working on for the new kindergarten wing at Hereford. Not that it's a new kindergarten wing, the revamped kindergarten wing. Let me just go there. I don't want to scare anybody. We talked about the high school varsity softball field drainage improvement again. And we also voted tonight to go with Barry Isaac and their proposal to help us to come up with the bid phase, the site design, and the estimated construction phase for the $22,750. Our next meeting is April 15th at 7 p.m. It's virtual. We also had a visit and a very nice presentation from the Kiwanis. They were looking to use our 90-foot baseball fields over the summer for their 13 to 18 age programs. We've tabled it just for now. We haven't even started opening 4 days for sure, which we're going to start April 6th. We said we would have to table it with them for a little while since we were not really working to have any usage of our facilities. Does anyone have any questions?
I'd just like to reiterate about the Kiwanis baseball that I think it would be devastating to the program to wait all the way till the end of school in June to not consider their request to use our fields. You know, I can understand that we can wait till the end of our season, but to wait until the end of school, they just may have to cancel their entire season. So I think maybe in April, it should appear on the agenda, and maybe we can consider or put some sort of a memorandum of understanding to consider their use request for the fields.
Duly noted. Thank you.
Mr. Hipser, Mr. Kenwood and I think, have a meeting either tomorrow or Monday on that request, as well as I mentioned a request for Election Day. One of our buildings, one of the local municipalities or firehouses, or I don't want to misspeak, but has made a request through the county for use of the building on that May 18th. So a couple facilities items there. So we'll provide you an update prior to the spring break here on looking at that. But it is definitely on the radar, and impressive the information that they did forward and the detail on the health and safety plan. And they were appear to be very flexible with a couple tweaks that I think could make that make it happen in that way if we did some rotation and or did some of the items that were discussed. So definitely in process.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Great. Anyone else have any questions? If not, I will move on to the Finance Committee, which is me. So our last meeting was March 15th. We discussed the tax collection software. And again, most of my items on my update, we've already voted on today. The committee approved to change the software offered and use software offered by the Berks County Intermediate Unit. And the district will actually save around $8,000 in the second year, which is good. We also transferring the per capita tax to be collected by Berkheimer, and this will save the district approximately $22,000. All but one of the tax collectors were in favor of giving up the per capita tax collection. They like to call it a nuisance tax, as do the rest of us. So the lone tax collector is allowed to continue on to collect the per capita. That's fine. We also have been talking about the hotspots the district will use going forward to support our kids who need internet service or boosts. T-Mobile's pricing has been lowered to $15 per month from $23 per month for unlimited data during the school year. And with no penalty, we can switch that program to 100 gigabytes per year in the summertime, which is free. We discussed healthcare benefits and different plans offered throughout the district. Our budget numbers when we get the budget, our budget numbers will only include the district's portion, not the funds that come from the covered employees. We discussed the district's PSERS portion of 34.9% of salary. And the next meeting is April 6th at 6 p.m. virtually. And the hot topic will be expenditures. So tune in. Okay, next I will move on to policy. And who is doing policy since Peg is not here? Oh, I should have known.
So the policy committee met on March 16th. Almost the bulk of the policy was revisiting policy 227 and 223, which were the controlled substance and paraphernalia policy. The committee took the feedback from both community members and board members and is ready to send on a recommended policy revision and the elimination of the 227AR for the board's first read in April. We also finalized the language in the recommendation for how boards would conduct suspension and expulsion hearings in policy 233, which is also going to move along to the board. We were able to touch base on policy 229, which is student fundraisers, and that's about as far as we got. Our next policy committee meeting, as I mentioned at the onset of this meeting, is April 19th. Our primary focus of that policy will be the discussion of class rank. We encourage all board members and all community members to attend and or send us feedback to review at the April 19th meeting.
Well, thank you. Anyone have any questions? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to Western Montgomery Career and Technical Center. And I think
I'm
I
gonna handle that for Steve.
was going to say, yep, another one of the walking wounded.
All right, the Joint Operating Committee met on Monday, March 1st via Zoom. Following a call to order, the committee moved briskly through the agenda items. Chris Moritzen and Donna Wilson gave a presentation on the 2021-22 budget, followed by 5 committee reports. Action agenda items of note included approving authority for the Superintendent of Records Administrative Director to appoint qualified personnel to vacant positions, hiring authority until the next board meeting. Finally, certified public accountants Hutchinson, Gillihan, and Frey PC were approved to perform the local audit and prepare the annual financial report for the Western Center. The next JOC is scheduled to meet next on Thursday, April 8th at 7 p.m. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dana. Any questions? Okay. If not, we'll move on to the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit with Ms. McGinnis.
Thank you. The Montgomery County Intermediate Unit Board met just yesterday, March 24th. Dr. Speaker announced that although it's still in the early stages, a transition plan is being formulated for the Harrisburg School District. As you know, or maybe you don't remember because that was about almost 2 years ago now, the IU was selected to help with the administration of the district while it was in receivership. Apparently it's going very well. We will be getting a full update at our April meeting, but in the meantime, they are beginning the transition period with the expected completion being June of 2022. So that was really good news. The vaccination clinic for the Montgomery County educational providers went very well. As you know, our teachers all went to the IU, teachers and staff and bus drivers, not just teachers. As of Monday, which was supposed to be the close of the clinic, they had vaccinated 10,600 people at the IU. They did receive some additional doses, so the clinic was reopened today and will be again tomorrow. And they were expecting to do an additional 1,640 vaccinations over these 2 days. So I'm sure they're quite busy today. Dr. Speaker did note that the success was largely attributed to the great teamwork and collaboration between the districts and the IU. And she did especially give a shout out, Georgie, to all the HR directors of the districts. They said that the Dr. Speaker said that you guys just did a phenomenal job. She said she thought that you must have been sleeping with your phone in your hand because as soon as they had an opening, they were calling HR directors and they were like, yep, I've got your people, here you go, here's some more. So she said you guys did a great job and she wanted to give a big shout out to you. Other than that, not much else. Our next meeting is April 28th, 2021. And in case any of you didn't notice in Dr. Roche's update, my term is up. So we do need to in the end of June. So if any of you are interested in taking over, just let Melanie know. If you don't have any questions, that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Judy. No questions? Any questions? Okay.
I just had a quick comment when your term is up, Judy. The MCIU, like the Western Center, is really a great opportunity to be able to talk to board members from other districts to sort of see what's going on in their district. And sometimes you get ideas on what, what's working in other districts, how it might help our district. Of course, Dr. Roche and the superintendents have similar conversations, but it's good on the board level to have those conversations too.
I agree. It's always nice to find out that other districts are handling issues either like the same way you are, or sometimes you can get an idea of something we hadn't thought. Mm-hmm. So, and it is just wonderful just to meet other, all 21 districts are represented. in the IU. So you get to meet somebody from all 21 districts. It's a neat opportunity.
Yep.
Great. Okay. All right. Now who's going to do legislative liaison report tonight? And if not, because Judy's not here, or because Peg's not here, did anybody volunteer for that? Okay, we'll just skip that one until the next time. We'll move, and Mike Elliott's not here. So we have Upper Perk Education Foundation. I guess we'll, unless somebody else has a report for him, we'll table that one until the next workshop. And regional planning, Dr. Drake.
Last but not least, so we had a regional planning meeting on the 24th, which was yesterday. The main topics were, again, discussion about the TCDI, Transportation and Community Development Initiative study in the area, which is the goal is to get look at community land use and update roads, pedestrian walkways, etc. One of the main goals is to get a connection from the Highland Trail to the Greenland entrance to the Perkiomen Trail. So that's ongoing. There's also a comprehensive plan update, which is a 10-year plan. And that's basically the future land use plan for the region. And that's where you sort of set out your vision for what you want the region to be and then lay out your zoning, et cetera. So they're working on that. As far as the, one of the main topics there is talking about some in Upper Hanover and Marlborough, sewers and roads, thinking about establishing them where and how the community might grow and then to build the infrastructure out. So there's some discussion on that. The regional updates with the various townships, there weren't really any major updates other than what I provided last time. Isaac Smith Park is under construction and renovation at Green Lane, and everybody could see the McDonald's as being demolished and then replaced. So those are the highlights. Any questions?
No. Okay. Well, thank you very much. So it is 5:10. I know we've been going for 3 hours now. Does anyone need a break? And then we have public comments next. Well, I guess, Kim, do we have any hands raised for public comment?
We do.
Okay. Anyone want to weigh in on, you want a 5-minute break?
I'm good.
No? Okay. All right. Well, then we'll move on to public comment.
Okay, so we have Tammy Carpenter.
Okay.
Tammy, just for the record, your township of residence and name. Thank you.
Yes, I'm Tammy Carpenter. I am from Upper Hanover Township. And my comment is in regards to the class rank valedictorian and salutatorian presentation that was given earlier today. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I appreciate the information that was provided on the history of the class rank and the reasonings behind the discussion and wanting to discontinue the policy. I just wanted to present some thoughts and concerns about it, especially for the valedictorian and the salutatorian positions, and possibly turning that into a selection process. You would need to outline like who would be on the selection committee. You would need to also set up criteria on how someone could be selected for those positions. And I worry about whether there would be any bias or favoritism in the people that are on the committee. And parents, questioning that selection process. And I will just say that for my student's school, that college that she goes to, they do have scholarships for the valedictorian and the salutatorian. And it needs to be the applicant that's ranked either first or second in their class. And if a student attending a school that doesn't provide class rank, they would not be eligible to receive the scholarship. And this scholarship is full tuition. So it would be a big deal to not get that position, especially if you earned it. I feel like the valedictorian and the salutatorian position should be based on actually earning the first or second position of rank in the class. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy.
Next is Alexis De Nofrio.
Okay.
No.
Hi, I'm Alexis De Nofrio from East Greenville, and I would like to point out that my hand was raised when this issue was brought up about the testing and the vote, and when you guys were doing your thing with that, and my hand was raised and I kept getting overlooked and my hand kept getting put down and lowered, and I do not appreciate it because me as a student, I'm speaking out for my student body and my students, my classmates and my class and every athlete out there. And from per the CDC guidelines and their website updated December 4th, test when in school, if a school is implementing a testing strategy, testing should be offered as a voluntary basis. It is an unethical and illegal to test someone who does not want to be tested, including students whose parents or guardians do not want them to be tested. Public health officials and school administrators may consider placing a higher priority for testing in schools that serve populations experiencing a disproportionate burden of COVID-19 cases or severe disease. Schools with moderate or large proportions of racial and ethnic groups that have experienced higher rates of COVID-19 cases relative to population size. Once public health officials determine the school's risk category, public health officials working in collaboration with school administrators can prioritize which staff, teachers, and students should be offered school-based testing. Persons with symptoms of COVID-19 and close contacts or of confirmed or probable COVID-19 patients should be considered the priority for testing. So there's no reason for testing on our athletic students who want to participate in their sport. There's absolutely no reason for it. And I don't understand why it is all of a sudden now being mandated when all this went down and it wasn't mandated. The only thing that was mandated was to wear a mask in school and 6 feet apart. So my concern is why now are we being mandated to have testing done on just our athletics? Because if we're doing it on just our athletics, we should do it across the board and shouldn't single out a few.
Thank you.
Next is Jennifer Hartsell.
Hi, this is Jennifer Hartsell from East Greenville. I don't appreciate you cutting off a student while she is trying to speak how our student body feels. I agree with her and I have looked it up. The CDC guidelines state it is illegal for you as a district to make it mandatory for our athletes and students to be tested. So yes, I applaud Alexis De Nofrio in what she looked up and found on her own. My other question is, how can a board vote on something that goes against the CDC guidelines? And I too got my hand lowered multiple times before your vote was made, which 5 of your 7 board members voted no. So you all made an uneducated vote based on the guidelines. And any athletic parent in this district who has their child required to be mandated testing, no offense, will have a lot of people to back them in a court of law. Because based on December's update, which is the last update for interim considerations for testing of K-12 school administrations and public health officials, yous are in violation of the CDC guidelines. And it is unlawful and illegal to mandate a required testing of any student or minor in grades K through 12. You really need to reconsider your vote, and I suggest you hold another vote prior to the end of the meeting.
Thank you for your comments.
Next, we have Kim Hickson.
Hi, Kim from Marlborough Township. Bravo, Jennifer. I totally agree with you as well. You all are missing the point. This is a research study, not a test for COVID. That is wrong and unethical. It is This ACIT test has been around for at least 20 years or more, and you were lied to. Also, to allow a person that does not have kids in the school district who bullies us is wrong. Hate has no home here. It is shameful that the kids are hated for their freedom. And parents and students that raise their hand and you deny us. I urge a revote. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you, Kim.
Next is Christine Schmoyer.
Oh. Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so I would like to talk about the, Christine Schmoyer, and I live in Pennsburg. With a limit of 2 minutes, I will be speaking quickly. I disagree with eliminating the class ranking, and this is not because my kids are in competition for the top spot. I feel that the system continues to try to make us be able to compare apples to apples. The students are not apples, thankfully. Students need to know where they rank for a variety of reasons, to know if they can apply for scholarships and/or colleges, to name two. Students unaware of their class position may not apply for scholarships that they are eligible for, and they might not have someone encouraging them to do so. Consider including class ranking on the report card for those in a certain top percentage. Many colleges consider a lower class ranking for entrance, so it's not just for those highly ranked students. The student can always not report class ranking on their college applications. The number of students who game the AP system for class ranking is maybe a handful. I asked my son and he could name one person in his class that he was aware of. The students are going to game the system for GPA. Class ranking is a byproduct of GPA. If a student is selecting AP classes when administrators feel that they are better suited for other classes, deal with those students rather than changing the whole system. The presentation stated that the class ranking promotes excessive competition among students. My son switches back and forth with one of his best friends. This is not an issue between them. If the concern is the top 10% of students at one school may not be equivalent to the top 10% at another school, the same argument holds true for GPA. What is 4% at one school may be at maybe a 3.5 at another school. Students who have academic success don't get recognized. The kids who have academic achievements get a reception with other students, but no other recognition. These successes should be recognized and celebrated. This is input from my son. You routinely point out that not all students are academic minded. I would like to point out that at every other aspect of a student's life, the student has the ability to compete and be recognized for their achievement. As you mentioned, Western Center students have Skills USA, athletes have playoffs, musicians have PMEA. You are taking away one primary recognition that academic students have, something that they strive for. This is all that some students have, and they deserve to have at least that achievement. Now that I'm back to myself. The valedictorian is a person with the highest GPA.
Christine, I'm sorry. I know
Okay,
other
people got to exceed their 2 minutes. Can I please have like 20 more seconds?
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I really, really appreciate that. The valedictorian is the person with the highest GPA. Having an application interview process for the graduation speaker is an option, a great option. How disappointing for the person with the highest GPA to not be named the valedictorian. If colleges include rank in their consideration for selection, the rank will still be a factor whether it is reported to students or not. Parents might not authorize providing this information to the colleges. The students may be 18 and are adults and can request this themselves. The world is competitive. The job market is competitive. If a student wants to own their own business, it's competitive. Students need to learn how to compete, celebrate successes, and work to improve to achieve their goals. Thank you. I appreciate the extension of the time.
Sure. And just don't forget, you can come to policy. Just a reminder.
Next is Maggie Buckwalter.
Okay.
Hi, Maggie Buckwalter, Upper Hanover Township. First, I would like to say without crying that I am very, very happy for Melissa Dietrich, and I would happily say that I was blessed to have 3 of our kids go through with her. And I think that so many teachers and students for generations now have just been so blessed here at this school to have her. So thank you to Melissa Dietrich. And also, I just want to say thank you for upholding the health issue. And just to go on with the class ranking issue, I just have a quick question. Will you still be weighting GPAs? That's a question I have. And secondly, just coincidentally, not related to this, I spent about 8 hours yesterday trying to scramble and look for some scholarships for a child that I know. I will tell you that while many schools don't consider ACT and SAT now, many still do. While some schools don't consider class rank, many still do. And there are many, many, many scholarships that are highly or solely dependent on class rank percentiles. So I have some due diligence to ask for from the board and administrators. I would like to know if you will be considering contacting some of these scholarship programs that require a percentile or valedictorian designation or salutatorian designation for their scholarship or admittance consideration. What will be the feedback for not offering that information? And secondly, I don't think that that's easy to do. So I would say that if you're not planning on freely publishing this, the class rank should still be calculated, because there are many schools that will depend on this, and scholarships especially, so that the students should be able to request and the parents should be able to request not only access to that information, but also permission to either release it or not release it to the students to which they will, to the schools to which they will be applying. And I have some other ideas, but I'll get back to you at policy meeting. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Maggie.
Next is Anthony O'Hara.
Sure you're gonna pass. Hi, you unmuted me.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Anthony.
Can I just ask one question?
Let me let Anthony go. I'm sorry, that was my fault.
Hello,
Go ahead, Anthony.
Anthony O'Hara, Upper Hanover. Just a note on the class rankings. The schools you listed, or you mentioned at the top of the rankings for Montgomery County, unfortunately, we are towards the bottom. So I just feel the class ranking might really help one of our kids get into a school or a scholarship if they're the top of our class, where in the bigger schools that are known to score and test highly on the standardized test, et cetera, there I can see that class ranking is not as much of an issue, and some kids could get lost in the shuffle. That's all for the class ranking. On the testing, I have no real side as far as the testing for students or for athletes. If they want to play, they'll do whatever they have to do to play. My problem is that the athletes are kind of being singled out as high risk. If you go on social media, check your kids' things, drive around town, you'll note that COVID does not exist outside of the school for the majority of students. They're all hanging out with their friends. Their parents are hanging out with friends. Many teachers, not saying upper perk, but teachers and administrators that I know even have parties right now to celebrate some holidays. COVID is very serious, but we can't act like the athletes are the only ones that are going to bring it into school. They're going to be the ones that take it seriously because they want to keep playing. The other kids who are not involved in athletics, they're just going about their daily routine and nothing to worry about. They're not getting tested. Again, I don't mind my kids getting tested or having to wear a mask. If they want to play, they'll do whatever they have to play. But I don't agree with saying that athletes are the ones that are going to spread it in school. Thank you.
Thanks, Anthony.
And we do have Jennifer Hartsell with the hand up.
Okay, is that the last one? Do we have
Yes.
any new people?
No.
All right, Jennifer, go ahead. This is
Hi,
the
I
last
just-
comment
I
today.
just had a question for Judy McGinnis. Again, I'm from East Greenville.
Oh.
She had said about autism initiative meeting, but I didn't catch the date and times of those.
Go ahead, Judy.
Sure. The Autism Initiative Intensive Teaching, there's actually 2 sessions of it. So hopefully you'll be able to make one of them. One is from 12 to 1 on May 6th, 2021. The other one is from 5:30 to 6:30, also on May 6th.
Okay, I got the understanding IEP meeting on the 15th from 5:30 to 7:30.
Right.
But I didn't catch the date for the initiative. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Oh, you are very welcome. I hope you get a chance to go to it.
Oh, I'll be there.
Oh, good.
Okay, so I guess we'll move on to board comments. Does anyone have any comments they'd like to make?
I do.
Go ahead, Ray.
I'm embarrassed for us for cutting off a student in mid-sentence, but allowing a staff member to continue for several minutes. I just feel that was really wrong. And I also got 2 text messages during this meeting from 2 different people who said that they were removed from the meeting by the host and not allowed to return. One made a comment and was never allowed to return, and the other one couldn't make a comment because they were removed before that. So I'm kind of hoping it was a system glitch or an accident, but I wanted to call it out and say that, I don't know what's going on tonight, but we need to do better.
Okay, so let me just, Ray, comment back to your, to Alexis De Nofrio. She did speak in the very beginning, and I let her comments go that we're about the bus and the transportation for the tech students. I did let her go, even though it wasn't an agenda item. So, and
I'm just saying that we need to stick to it.
Everyone to at least one comment, and pretty much at least 10 or so people had multiple comments. So if we drop somebody, I'm sorry. I can't see the list. So it's hard to find, and it's hard to look at all of the different things. So if somebody didn't put their hand up, or they put their hand up and it got put down, doesn't the hand go down after a while? Oh, no, it doesn't. Okay.
And just to be clear, no, is it correct that no one was purposefully removed from the meeting?
That's a fact.
I don't mean it was purposely. I'm just saying that I got 2 text messages in the same meeting. It's kind of.
Yeah, it could be a technical thing. I just wanted to make sure that from our perspective, nothing was done intentional.
Okay.
Correct.
Anyone else have comment?
I just had a request. It's not really a comment. The student that mentioned about the busing, I don't know if we could add that to something with new business or for follow-up, just to make sure that that situation can be addressed in terms of transportation. I don't remember all the details, but it did seem like it could be something that could be maybe addressed with some discussion of busing when the time is right.
Okay, maybe we can put that in the finance committee as well.
Well, yeah, I gave the board an update on Western Center transportation this past week, this past Friday, I believe, when we were able to extend busing with the transition back on April 6th through the end of the year. Just wanted the board to be aware that kind of went from 3 buses to 8 buses in our current setting. So the budget number would need to be increased now. We'd need to address that now if the plan was for similar type busing next year. Because this year we obviously didn't have that in the budget, and we're able to, fortunate to use some I think COVID money for additional costs and whatnot. But so if that is the plan, yes, I do. I mean, that there is a plan to have virtual offerings in the fall. We're still working on those plans. That's part of why we wanted to collect some of that feedback. But with that said, right now, Dr. Drake, I believe, and Sandy can chime in, that right now the budget for Western Center buses is simply to and from the high school on the normal set of either 3 or 4 buses. So we can get a number from Sandy if that's the potential. That we'd also want to let the new transportation company know that is a real possibility as well in terms of their staffing.
It was the first I heard of it, so I would just like to discuss it, not to keep going till 11 o'clock today, but just to say we should talk about it in some future meeting if we can.
I'll make sure we address it at least in finance for sure.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. I get a second?
Before somebody seconds that, can we, I'm gonna ask one more time, can we address any of the things that came up that that parents said that might have been incorrect or misinformation, so that people know facts correctly? If there wasn't anything anybody said that wasn't incorrect, then great. But if people still have misconceptions after Dr. Roche's presentation, I really think we we have a duty to address it.
How about if we do this, Judy? Because I think, Alan, you said you're going to put that whole presentation on the website tomorrow. with
It'll be sent out in the Friday blast to all the families.
And it'll have live links. So how about if, instead of us going over all those questions, because I know I wrote a lot of speedy notes and I didn't get every single detail, but how about if we talk about it at the beginning of the next meeting? Or I don't know that it'll be a lot different because now we'll have at least the presentation with all the live links to it, which we don't have tonight.
Dr. Freeman and I also work with Mrs. Gum today in terms of that presentation, as well as other FAQs that, because we had responded to a series of parents and questions that may have been frequently asked, to try to put that together. So that'll be a part of, hopefully a part of the update or pushed out there quickly. Dr. Freeman, I don't know if there's anything that you wanted to mention quickly off the top of your head.
Yeah, and it won't be long. I do just want to clarify something, that this is not a research study. It is a public health initiative, and that is very important. It actually is by the U.S. Department of Health, commissioned by the CDC, approved by the CDC. The FDA approved the authorization in August of 2020. So those are some of the misconceptions that you're not necessarily going to find in the presentation. And the hyperlinks will show that we requested parent consent on multiple occasions, embedded in multiple updates. And if our families visit Skyward, their student portal, it's in there, and it's written requesting consent. So I want to highlight that. You can even click on it and see exactly what the verbiage is that every parent sees when they go into the Skyward portal about assurance testing and consent. So the parent asked about, can a parent come with a child? Absolutely. Lots of parents come to the education center with children. So those are some things that you might not jump out at you, that I want to clarify.
Can we all, I have one more point to that. I think quite a few people near the end were upset because they thought we could forcefully mandate a child to take a test. But I think the point of that is that the parent has to say it's okay, and in either playing sports or not playing sports, that's the parent's consent.
Correct, and they would also have to produce a QR code. So there's a consent portion on the student management system side, and then the QR code, they actually have to produce their child's QR code to a coach. And if they do not, then they are obviously not consenting to testing. And we would never test a child without a parent's consent.
That's where I was going with that. Okay. All right. Anyone else have any more comments? Judy, are you okay with that if we just let that information soak in, since none of the parents don't have it yet?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, in that case, I will re-ask for a motion to adjourn. And I think Carrie made the motion.
Yeah, I'll make the motion. Give me a second.
Second.
Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Any opposed? I don't think so. Thank you, everyone. And talk to you soon. Thank you.